Chapter 685. Bam. 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 Lu Cheng spread out his fists, punching, thrusting, crushing, and hammering. Every move was heavy and carried a tinge of purple. He launched a frenzied attack with no gaps in between, just like the blazing flames in the prairie. In terms of close combat, both fire-like invasion and blizzard storm belonged to the best of the best in this field. Lu Cheng was a martial artist who specialized in this field. In an instant, he completely suppressed Talon, causing him to be unable to cope with his attacks and be unable to do anything. However, Talon's half-dead body had immense strength and could move like the wind. He was slightly better than Lu Cheng in these two aspects. Moreover, his body was sturdy, close to the strength of the Golden Bell shield of the same level. Ordinary attacks and flames had little effect on him. Therefore, he relied on simple and violent moves to block his opponent. Although he was at a disadvantage, he didn't panic and didn't show any signs of losing. If it weren't for such a miraculous half-dead body technique, it wouldn't have become one of the supreme secret arts of the Witch King lineage. Rumble. 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 As their fists and feet collided, the purple flame scattered and the grayish-white light dimmed. Muffled thunder-like sounds echoed continuously. They seemed to stack together, but at the same time, they seemed to last forever. As they fought, rings of white air billows gushed out from the places where Lu Cheng and Talon exchanged blows. They stirred up strong winds, stirring up dirt, and even blowing away broken trees. Shadow Hunter Cheng had wanted to use the fact that he was an inhuman expert to approach and assist Lu Cheng. He wanted to quickly finish off the physical invulnerability mighty one with countless strange skills. However, he couldn't break through the wind barrier. The further he went, the harder it got. In the end, he couldn't even move an inch. Seeing that the battle was at a stalemate, with no clear victor and no opportunity to escape, Talon's heart sank. This was because the half-dead body technique could only last for 5 minutes. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, he clenched his teeth and twisted his arms forward. They transformed into 2 pythons and coiled around Lu Cheng's fists. At the same time, his eyes turned green. Black smoke rose from his grayish-white cracked skin. His body instantly shrank by a size. The moment the black smoke appeared, it took shape and turned into half a ring. It wrapped around Lu Cheng, then contracted and locked him in place. Witch King's secret technique, Ghost Lock. Faced with such a situation, Lu Cheng took a deep breath, retracted his chi and blood, and forcefully pulled back his fist. Ice and fire embraced each other as the great pellet condensed. He shifted the constellations and outlined the word battle, that seemed to be able to battle the heavens and the earth. At this moment, Talon didn't take the opportunity to attack. Instead, he retracted his arms and formed a strange seal in front of him. Bang! Lu Cheng's body expanded, causing the ghost lock to crack apart. Talon's figure turned eerily blurry as though he had turned into a grayish-white shadow. The shadow twisted and collapsed, splitting into 9 parts. They fled at high speed in various directions of the forest. Each one seemed to be fake, but each one could be real. It was the ultimate escape technique of the Witch Kings, Chaos of the 9 Suns. Lu Cheng quickly reformed his ice heart, and used the deity spell above his head. However, he still couldn't tell which shadow was Talon. Seeing that the other party was about to escape from the range of his mind power, he raised his hands to draw the ancient characters and said in a dignified voice, "Column." The decueing formula of the 9 words formula. The original purpose of this secret technique was to stack the strength of a team and complete a joint attack. Like the rope in a tug-of-war, it allowed everyone to rely on each other and tidy up their scattered and messy thoughts. However, such a combination couldn't be forced. After the column formula was used, the other party had to be willing to let go of their subconscious resistance for it to take effect. Therefore, it couldn't create the strange scene of stacking the strength of the enemy. As for Smith and the rest, they were outside of his mental range, so they weren't within the effective range of the column formula. Lu Cheng used it at this moment to test the waters. The real Talon would resist, but the illusory shadow wouldn't react unless it had sentience. This way, it would be clear who was real and who was fake. In a flash, Lu Cheng found a way to break through the chaos of the 9 suns. He didn't take the conventional route. A mysterious feeling spread rapidly. His mind seemed to have turned into a radar. In the blink of an eye, feedback appeared. Lu Qing aimed at the grayish-white shadow on his left and threw a punch. Bzzz. Behind his back and under his feet, waves of light blue flames spurted out, pushing him through layers of air barriers. He flashed behind the shadow and struck the back of its head without slowing down. Talon's pupils contracted. His eyes narrowed to the size of a needle. He didn't expect the chaos of the Nine Suns to be able to fool Lu Qing all the time. However, he believed that Lu Qing wouldn't be able to tell in a short period of time. This confidence was cultivated from hundreds of battles. Once he entered a safe distance, he would have too many ways to escape pursuit. However, Lu Qing didn't waste any time. He seemed to have seen through the real thing at a glance. This was simply too frightening, enough to make one feel despair. As his thoughts drifted, Talon's eyes revealed a ruthless look. He leaned forward and dodged the iron fist that was aimed at the back of his head. At the same time, he raised his left arm as though he was subconsciously maintaining his balance. Bam! Lu Qing ignited Emperor Yen force. He lowered his shoulder and forcefully changed the direction of his fist. The punch was supposed to be a hammer strike. At that moment, Talon's raised left arm suddenly exploded. Blood and flesh splattered and drenched half of Lu Qing's body. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Amidst the terrifying sounds of corrosion, Talon's dark green martial arts suit turned black and tattered. The skin on Lu Qing's arms, shoulders, chest, and face started to fester rapidly. Worms seemed to have fused with Talon's flesh as they wriggled and tried to burrow into his body. Shaman King's body-damaging secret technique, flesh and blood spirit goo. The intense pain caused Lu Qing's hammer strike to lose its strength. His body paused involuntarily. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Talon accelerated again and pounced towards the forest at the edge of the clearing. Lu Qing's ice heart swayed, but didn't disintegrate. He endured the pain and executed Lord Emperor's purple flames. With a whoosh, faint purple flames appeared around his body. They wandered around the surface of his body like flowing water, igniting Talon's flesh and blood. The tiny insects turned black, then charred, and finally started burning. No goo worm wasn't afraid of flames. If there was, he would increase the temperature. Bam, bam, bam. Amidst the purple flames, the bits of flesh either turned to ashes or fell off. Lu Qing's skin, muscles, and hair merely curled up slightly and gave off a barbecued smell. This was the fire control ability of a fire sect physical invulnerability expert. While the faint purple flames around him swayed and danced, Lu Qing endured the pain and raised his hands. Using an area of effect technique, he started forming hand seals at Talon, who was moving left and right. As the ancient word formed, he exhaled and said, "Confrontation." The hatred and urgency in Talon's heart dissipated instantly. He became sluggish and drowsy, returning to his usual state of recuperation after being injured. Not good. He bit the tip of his tongue and forcefully raised his mentality. At this moment, the ancient word in Lu Qing's mind changed. He used the simplified attainment formula and caught up to Talon in 2 strides. He shook his arm and threw a punch. Talon shook off his sluggish and drowsy state. He quickly lowered his missing left shoulder and blocked his opponent's right fist. Throughout the entire process, he didn't panic. He remembered to let the grayish-white fog pass under his skin to prevent freezing and stiffening. As for explosions and burns, he had to rely on the sturdiness of his body. Just as the two came into contact, Lu Qing suddenly turned his fist into a palm. Pressing down with force, he bent his back and flipped himself up. He leaped above his opponent and threw a punch headfirst at his Baihui acupoint. Talon's half-dead body had outstanding brute strength and incredible speed. However, when it came to close combat techniques, he couldn't catch up to Lu Qing no matter how hard he tried. Seeing the sudden turn of events, he could only shrink his neck in panic and raise his right fist. However, Lu Qing opened his left hand again and pressed lightly on Talon's fist, infusing it with ice spirit force. Then using the force, he flipped over and jumped to the back of his opponent. While in midair, he tightened his right leg and whipped it backwards like a steel whip with a spring attached to it. Talon's body turned cold and slowed down slightly. He wanted to throw himself forward, but it was too late. He barely avoided being hit in his vital organs, and was kicked in the right shoulder by Lu Qing. Bam! His shoulder collapsed and was badly mangled. Although his arm didn't fall off, he couldn't exert any strength. Feeling a chill in his heart, Talon twisted his body like a boneless person and looked at Lu Cheng. His eyes burned like green flames as a strange and terrifying feeling spread out. Lu Cheng, who had just steadied himself and turned his body, instantly felt his surroundings turn dark. The craters left behind by the cannon fire had disappeared. The dense forest had disappeared. Smith and the rest had disappeared as well. The darkness was quickly dyed with green, blood red, and other colors. Talon stood out. He was at least 100 meters tall, with heads and arms all over his body. Countless eyes stared at him without blinking. The intense fear seemed to materialize and turned into a sea of insects that covered the sky. As Monster Talon's countless huge palms pressed down, they drowned out Lu Cheng. Secret spirit technique of the Witch King lineage, savage sacrifice. Lu Cheng's body was transparent as though he was made of ice crystals. Under such circumstances and attacks, cracks appeared one after another. Even with enemy heart-freezing move, he couldn't completely neutralize his opponent's attack. At the critical moment, Lu Cheng suddenly disappeared from Monster Talon's eyes. In addition to the dark green and blood-red colors, there was a boundless darkness. There were also distant and resplendent stars. The 100-meter-tall giant and the innumerable insects were so small that they could be ignored. The terrifying atmosphere suddenly weakened by quite a bit. Just as Talon was about to respond, the stars started to move rapidly, forming 9 mysterious and ancient words. Confrontation. Army. Fighting. Swordsman. Wholeness. Formation. Deference. Forwarding. Attainment. In an instant, the 9 ancient words shone brightly and pierced through the pure mental domain. They tore apart the green blood insects and giant. Talon instinctively tilted his head back as grayish-white blood flowed out of his nose. Rumble. Smith and the rest seized the opportunity and fired a rocket, forcing Talon to dodge pathetically. Both his arms were disabled, his attacks were ineffective, his enemies surrounded him, and his opponents were strong. All of this made him feel despair. Ruthlessness reappeared in Talon's eyes as he looked at Lu Cheng and shouted, "Let's die together." His grayish-white body spontaneously combusted. His flesh and soul turned into the most ferocious curse, silently and formlessly attacking Lu Cheng. He didn't know where to dodge. It was Life Curse, the secret technique of the Witch Kings that would perish together. He wanted to use the curse ignited by his life to break through the defense of his opponent's supernatural ability. Lu Cheng was alarmed. Without thinking, he retracted his chi and blood to balance the ice and fire, forming the Jindan that looked like a miniature universe. After the real Jindan shattered and fused with his body, his ability to repel curses had indeed improved. However, compared to the Long Hu Immortal, who was truly skilled in curses, he was still lacking. He wasn't as strong as when he had the Jindan. However, the Long Hu Immortal's ability didn't appear out of nowhere. It was based on his Jindan technique, 9 words formula, and secret technique. Unfortunately, for a physical invulnerability mighty one who was skilled in curses, Lu Cheng had obtained all of these. Therefore, he could temporarily improve his ability to repel curses in battle. The stars moved and the 9 words formula formed a complicated seal script. Ripples spread to every corner of the universe. The blood was swept away. The flames on Talon's body were extinguished as his body melted like a candle. The light in his eyes faded. Talon muttered to himself, "Why is everything countered by you?" His voice gradually faded into silence. Soon he was reduced to a pile of flesh and blood. Smith, Dwight, Cheng and Jiandan, and the rest watched from afar, forgetting to put down their weapons. A physical invulnerability terror grade expert had fallen in front of them, and he only had one opponent. P.S. After a long time of not having enough words, I finally exceeded the word count once again. Chapter 686. Report the situation to the Joint Command Center. Lu Cheng turned his head and looked at Shadow Hunter Cheng'en. The corroded parts of his body were starting to scab, and the pain was still lingering. The purple flames gradually extinguished, revealing his upper body that contained terrifying power. He took a deep breath and resisted the urge to grimace. He was puzzled by the development of the situation. The physical invulnerability expert just now should belong to the branch of the Witch King. In a situation where he was restrained by himself, It shouldn't be a problem for him to make the decision to escape. But in the end, he first damaged his body and risked his life, then used a curse that would take him down with him. It didn't make sense. Normally speaking, in a hopeless situation where both parties didn't have a deep hatred for each other, shouldn't surrendering be the natural choice? Wouldn't it be better to preserve his useful body and wait for hope to appear? For a physical invulnerability expert, he would be valued no matter which force he joined. Of course, there would be some control measures, just like number 16 and number 17. This was already a very bad ending. The branch of the Witch King that he belonged to would pay a sufficient price to exchange him back. After all, it was very difficult to nurture a physical invulnerability expert. You had to look at the sky. With such a backup plan, why would the other party sacrifice himself? Could it be that the secret he was involved in was more important than his life? It was because of his misjudgment of the enemy's attitude that Lu Cheng was almost invaded by the goo worm and suffered serious injuries. That was why he resisted the curse that would take him down with him. If his realm and strength were slightly lower, it would be questionable whether he would still be standing in one piece. Yes. Hearing Lu Cheng's order, Cheng hurriedly answered. Unknowingly, his tone was subconsciously filled with respect and fear. He retracted his gaze, took out his satellite phone, and started to contact the command center. Not far away, Smith stared blankly at the puddle of flesh and blood. Then he shifted his gaze to Lu Cheng. He felt that Lu Cheng hadn't changed much from the first time he saw him. The only difference was that he looked more mature and reserved. However, the terror-grade corpse in front of him silently contradicted his senses. Every time they met, his strength would increase tremendously. It was as if there was no limit or delay. Even when he came to Connecticut once a month, it was the same, just not as exaggerated. But now, he had grown into an expert that Smith looked up to, a terrifying figure who could kill a terror-grade expert alone. Was this the path of strength displayed by the best fighting prodigies? Like the Dragon King and the Warrior Sage in China, or the Saint and the Hand of Order in the Big Apple? Living in the information age, it was not that Smith had never seen the top experts, but that was all through the screen. He could not personally experience the horror of the qualitative changes that happened every once in a while. Now he understood. This was a growth rate that made people despair and lose their confidence. At the same time, he came to a deeper realization. The other party was really a troublemaker, the source of accidents. Stay away from the building and be safe. At this moment, the voice of the higher-ups of the Joint Command Headquarters came from Cheng An's satellite phone. Did you identify that physical invulnerability expert? I've taken a picture, and will send it back for comparison soon. It's suspected to be Talon from the branch of the Witch King. Cheng An often came to the war-torn zones to carry out missions, so he was no stranger to the famous masters in this area. Very good. Where are Ta Gu and his trusted subordinates? Was there a solution? Are there any survivors? All dead, except for Ta Gu. The rest were killed by the suspected physical invulnerability expert, probably to silence them, Cheng An answered honestly. Silence? This is a little strange. The higher-ups pondered for a moment before asking, did that physical invulnerability expert leave behind any clues? No. Cheng An glanced at the pile of flesh and blood and added in a low voice, he's already dead. There was silence on the other end, and even the sound of breathing seemed to have disappeared. After a long while, Cheng An heard a slightly anxious new question. How did he die? By. Cheng An swallowed his saliva and said, killed by Mr. Liu, in the Joint Command Headquarters. The gathered higher-ups were once again at a loss for words. Oh my God! A few seconds later, a brown-haired man exclaimed. If it was Talon, he would indeed be countered by Liu, said a blue-eyed woman in a dark green military uniform. Even so, it's very, very difficult to kill a terror-grade expert. The brown-haired man shrugged and spread his hands. The higher-ups sent by China looked at each other, unsure if they should join the discussion or be more reserved. Would it be immodest of us to express our admiration and praise from the bottom of our hearts? Just as they were hesitating, the blue-eyed woman suddenly gasped. The previous time the commenter came to the war-torn zones, 2 terror-grade experts, number 16 and number 18, also died. She had participated in the follow-up negotiations, and understood the situation well. The brown-haired man rolled his eyes and blurted out, "Last time, when he came to Nile, even more terror-grade experts died. Among them, the deaths of the Dark Night Bat and the Mummy are suspected to be related to him. Now was also considered a war-torn zone back then." One of the higher-ups couldn't help but add, "All 3 times he came to the war-torn zones, all 3 times involved the death of terror-grade experts, without exception." The blue-eyed woman's voice grew softer, and there was a hint of fear in her voice. Could he really be a human-shaped catastrophe that targets terror-grade experts? The brown-haired man muttered to himself, "We have to restrict him from coming here in the future. Is it really okay to discuss this in front of us? Besides, all of you are only at the inhuman stage or below. There's no need to worry." The higher-ups of China looked at each other, and didn't interrupt. They calmed down and quickly ordered Chang'an to collect the corpses of suspected Tashalans and other valuable items, and return to the command center as soon as possible. He was also to keep it a secret. If there was a leak, he would be court-martialed. Chang'an hung up the phone and passed the order to the others. Dwayne frowned. He did not hide his doubts and asked, "What's the matter? Why did he commit suicide? Why didn't he surrender?" In his opinion, sacrificing one's life to curse Lu Cheng was equivalent to suicide. Maybe he's a physical invulnerability expert with ideals and uncompromising perseverance. Jian Dan replied half-jokingly and half-seriously. There were indeed such physical invulnerability experts, but they were all people with strong wills. Maybe he hates being controlled, or maybe it's related to curses. He should belong to the branch of the Witch King. If there's a big secret behind him, he might hand over something important to him. Once he surrenders, he will be cursed from afar. Chang'an made a deduction based on what he had seen and heard over the years. Possible. Lu Qing nodded slowly. Let's return as soon as possible. The follow-up investigation wasn't within the scope of his mission. There were plenty of professionals in the military. As for assigning a new mission, that would have to wait until he had some clues about the secret. It seemed like it would be difficult to come up with a direction for the time being. So, I have to go home for the holidays and Connecticut for the new year. Outside the forest, in a camouflaged armored vehicle, a middle-aged man with grayish-white eyes, who seemed to be blind, leaned against the back of a chair and looked outside. He wore a black short-sleeved shirt, which was very characteristic of the war-torn zones. His hair was combed neatly, and his face had a hint of green. He was the current generation's Witch King, Ruoxine. The mission this time was only to rescue Ta Gu. The Witch King lineage was the best choice, and they didn't reject it. However, Ruoxine didn't appear personally, and was only there to provide support. If the matter was exposed, Talon's personal actions and the Witch King lineage's involvement were 2 completely different concepts. The other party wouldn't pay the same amount of attention. At this moment, there was a sudden cracking sound. A puppet placed on the platform in front of Ruoxine collapsed and broke into pieces. It originally had many dark red patterns, and its face was similar to Talon's. Especially its eyes, they were vivid and seemed to have a life of their own. Voodoo marionette. It was the foundation of the Witch King's practice of curses. When it was fully mastered, it would become the most important and fatal thing in itself. If it was mastered by a master who was also skilled in curses, it would be at the mercy of others. Talon is dead. Witch King Ruoxine's eyes shrunk, and he couldn't help but blurt out. As doubts and shock flashed through his mind, his hand gesture changed. The grayish-white color gathered, and a foot-long glow shot out from his eyes as he muttered. He wanted to use Talon's voodoo marionette to remotely connect with Talon's soul that had just passed away, and find out what had happened before his death. The broken puppet flew up, burning fiercely with grayish-white flames. Within the flames, a scene quickly took shape. It was a scene of boundless darkness and bright stars. Immediately after, an extremely complicated seal script appeared. It suddenly rippled and extinguished the flames. Cough. Ruoxine tilted his head back and coughed. 2 streams of dark red liquid flowed out from his nose. He covered his nose with his hand. His eyes flickered, and he instructed his subordinates, "Leave this place." In the military airport, Lu Qing received a call from Empress Luo Ningzitong. You really did cause an accident." This experienced senior beauty was a little helpless. After handing over the task and being escorted out of the territory, Lu Qing laughed dryly. "That's their own problem." Ning Zitong was silent for a few seconds before saying, "Killing a physical invulnerability expert single-handedly is something you should be proud of for a while. Your master only managed to do it after years of immersion in the physical invulnerability stage. As for the merit, we'll investigate it later. If it involves a major problem, you don't have to do anything else. You can go and study the restriction sect, Clear Jade chapter." "Thank you, Sister Ning," Lu Qing replied happily. After hanging up, he wondered if he should brag to his master. However, after a long time he still couldn't get through. It wasn't that there was no signal or that the phone was switched off, but that no one was picking up. Chapter 687. Wuyue Province, Moshang City. Shi Yuejian was leisurely experimenting with new cooking methods when she suddenly heard the vibration of a mobile phone in the living room. "Dad, why didn't you answer the phone?" she asked loudly, raising the volume. "A nuisance call." Shi answered concisely. As soon as the vibration stopped, he immediately unlocked the screen, clicked on the settings, and switched to Do Not Disturb mode. "Fortunately, I've learned this trick recently. Otherwise, that brat would be so proud of himself." Shi muttered to himself. His information network was extremely fast and accurate. At this moment, Shi Yuejian came out of the kitchen, holding her mobile phone. Half puzzled and half amused, she said, "Little junior brother called me." She said she couldn't reach her dad and asked if something had happened. He still cared about his teacher. Shi's face darkened. He reached out and took the phone unhappily. Lu Qing hung up the phone with satisfaction and left the military base. He arrived at Huaqing Heishui Airport and flew directly to Gaofen, the capital of Xing Province. When he landed, Yanzhika had just woken up and read the news. She was quite excited to talk about the strange abilities of the Witch King with him. While chatting, Lu Qing put on the black-rimmed glasses that covered half of his face and hailed a taxi to Gaofen City. When he was in Huiyuan, he had made an appointment with Jiang Fei and Qin Rui to have a meal before the holidays. When they were on holiday, he would have flown to America. He had to cherish this opportunity that came only once every 6 months. As his reputation grew, it was uncertain whether he would be able to enter the country in the future. Fortunately, Ko only had 1.5 years of courses left, which meant he could enter the country 3 times. Before the rush hour, Lu Qing arrived at the restaurant Jiang Fei had mentioned, Old Cold Skewers. He also saw his best friend who seemed to have put on some weight and had an oily face. "It's not easy. It's really not easy to have a meal with you now." Jiang Fei stood up with a smile and pulled out a chair for Lu Qing to put his backpack. "Fatty Jiang, you're not being honest. If you want to come to Huaqing, I'm always free." Lu Qing joked and asked casually, "Qin Rui hasn't arrived yet?" "He's stuck in traffic. There's a huge traffic jam coming from the west. It'll probably take another 5 or 6 minutes. Let me tell you, when eating in Gaofen, don't go to big restaurants or fancy places. You have to eat at small roadside restaurants like this. As long as you can find a good one, the taste will be amazing. This one opened not long ago, and I've certified it. It's much better than those that can be found everywhere in chain stores, especially the celery beef. TSK, you can give it a try." Lu Qing glanced at the greasy but clean shop and asked with a smile, "Do they count or weigh?" In this kind of string business, one would either count the number of sticks or weigh the overall weight of the sticks. Then one would divide it by a single stick to get the approximate data. This would not be very accurate, but it was convenient. "I'm counting," Jiang Fei answered, a little confused. Lu Qing chuckled and made a joke. "Won't the waiter be crying from counting later?" Jiang Fei immediately understood what he meant and could not help but sigh. "Say, you eat so much more than me, but why don't you get fat?" "If you have my training intensity, you won't get fat," Lu Qing joked. Jiang Fei's face twitched and he said self-deprecatingly, "But I'll die." After that, the two laughed at the same time, got up, found a large iron plate, and finished all the celery beef, coriander beef, spicy beef, and Scottish fold beef in the refrigerator. "Can you eat so much?" The waitress looked at them blankly. There were at least 600 or 700 skewers, right? The kitchen couldn't keep up with the speed of the beef skewers. We have a lot of people, but we haven't arrived yet, Lu Qing explained seriously. Oh, the waitress suddenly understood. Lao Lung kebab belonged to the hot pot category, so it had to be cooked by oneself. Lu Qing and Jiang Fei had just mixed the sauce and prepared a batch when they saw Qin Rui, who was more than 9 meters tall, enter the shop with his head lowered. You're late, you'll be punished with 3 glasses of wine. Fatty Jiang shouted. Because they were both in Gaofun, he and Qin Rui, who were single, had been eating together for the past few months. They were much closer than before. I'll replace the wine with tea? Qin Rui pulled over a chair and asked. Tea? We're all drinkers. Jiang Fei laughed. Then I'll punish myself with 3 bottles of herbal tea. Qin Rui relaxed immediately. Lu Qing saw that his qi and blood had reached a certain level, so he asked with interest. Are you trying to break through to the dance stage recently? Sai, don't mention it. I can't find the direction at all. I've increased the number of times I participate in the arena, but I still don't feel it. Qin Rui replied, half bitter and half expectant. Since he came to Gaofun, he had sought refuge in the martial arts club that his master was familiar with. He had formed a team with a group of like-minded peers to participate in the preliminaries. He had been defeated time and time again, and had gradually transformed into a real professional ninth pin fighter. This year he had signed up for many small-scale individual arena competitions, and received the prize money for the first time in his life. Lu Qing thought for a moment and said, try another way. Don't be too busy with the competition. Take some time out and go on a solo trip. It's best if it's a spacious, vast, and magnificent place. You can learn how to fish and study the art of tea. In short, find something else to do and experience a different life. This will help you tap into the strength in the depths of your heart, the strength that supports you to move forward. If you feel it, grasp it and design a certain way to polish your will. At this stage, my master once gave me 10 words, and I'll give them to you as well. Human body Big Dan, bright and round. Well, I'll try it later. Qin Rui nodded, not quite understanding, but he had already decided to do as he was told. After talking about martial arts for a while, Lu Qing picked up the skewers, cut the beef, and let it roll a few times in the sauce. Then he put it into his mouth. He felt that the meat was tender and smooth. The taste of the celery subdued some of the unpleasantness of the meat. With the help of chili and sesame oil, it tasted great. Not bad. Fatty Jiang, you're really good at eating. Lu Qing praised and then asked, how's it going? How's life in the factory recently? It's still the same. We study mechanics. What else can we do? Jiang Fei suddenly said indignantly, I originally thought that I could meet girls working in the factory, but it turns out that most of the people in this company are men. I feel like I'll always be single. I think I'll always be lonely for the rest of my life. Qin Rui helped him to match the music. Don't worry, in a few years, your parents will arrange blind dates for you. Lu Qing didn't know if he was comforting him or provoking him. And even if there are girls working in the factory, I don't think you'll like them. Well, I feel like we don't have anything in common and I don't know what to talk about when we get married. Jiang Fei, who was single, thought about his life after marriage and then sighed. The factory is so boring, and I don't see any promotion for a while. A few of my batch have already left, and my master keeps praising me, saying that I'm steady, not impetuous, and can calm down to do things. In fact, I'm often troubled, thinking about whether to take the postgraduate entrance exam or start a business, but I forget about it in a second. Ever since we met, I've always admired you for that. You have a good attitude and don't remember your troubles, said Lu Qing sincerely. When you've decided on a direction to strive for, if there's anything you need help with, feel free to look for me. This was also the main reason why his friendship with Fatty Jiang could last so long, and not fade away slowly. Some people can be friends for life, while others can only be friends for a period of time. Jiang Fei's eyes lit up. That's great. I'll remember what you said. Lu Qing laughed and teased. Fatty Jiang, I'm just being polite. Why are you so impolite? Hee hee, thick-skinned people live better lives. Jiang Fei laughed proudly. As he ate, Qin Rui remembered something and said with a smile, Cheng, every holiday outside your neighborhood almost becomes an acrobatic performance ground. Why? Lu Qing was confused. Every holiday, many parents bring their children who have just started practicing martial arts to train and perform stunts outside your neighborhood. They wonder if a physical invulnerability mighty one will coincidentally come home and see their child's potential and take him in as a disciple, explained Qin Rui without much literary talent. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. Aren't they thinking too much? Everyone in the neighborhood knew where his neighborhood was, so it couldn't be hidden. However, with the government and the military taking care of it in the open and in the dark, it wasn't to the extent of disturbing his parents' daily lives. I've heard about this too. I was just passing by last time. Cheng, let me tell you, I even saw a monkey performer. I don't know if he saw the crowd and decided to perform to earn money, or if he wanted you to take his monkey in as a disciple, said Jiang Fei with a laugh. Lu Cheng was amused. I can try to teach it about cultivation. Ever since he had advanced to physical invulnerability, he was always free at home, not on holidays. After chatting for a while on this topic, Qin Rui asked curiously, Cheng, you haven't participated in the recent title matches. Are you conserving your energy and preparing to shock the world? Not exactly shocking the world, but I've participated in key events. After the new year, my goal is to do well in the top professional competitions and try for the Battle of Warrior Sage in May and the Battle of the Kings in December. Let's see how far I can go. As for the other title matches, I might give up or just familiarize myself with my opponents and practice my moves, answered Lu Cheng as he pondered. In May, I'll have been at physical invulnerability for almost a year. In December, I'll be at least a year and a half. Then I wish you a better ranking. Jiang Fei and Qin Rui picked up their drinks. The next day, Lu Qing bade them farewell and boarded the high-speed train back to Xiushan. Outside the window, dark clouds covered the sky. The weather was terrible. When he arrived at his hometown and walked out of the high-speed train station, he saw snowflakes fluttering in the air. Since Lu Qing was born, it had only snowed 3 times in Xiushan. This was the 4th. Timely snow promises a bountiful year, exclaimed Lu Qing with a smile. Chapter 688. No one came to pick him up after he exited the high-speed rail station. Lu Qing disguised himself and hailed a black cab. He negotiated the price from 30 to 15 with a disdainful attitude. It had nothing to do with money. He just didn't want to be fooled by the driver. If he wasn't in a good mood, he would have crushed the road with his feet. Lu Qing arrived home without a word. He put down his backpack, hailed a cab, and went straight to Xiushan City Hotel. Today was Lu Yanwei's wedding day. He had planned to come back early to observe the wedding preparations and gain some experience. However, he was delayed by a temporary task and could only attend the main event. At the entrance of the luxurious city hotel, there was a huge picture of Lu Yanwei and his bride Tang Ning. There were balloons, flowers, and other decorations. It was a joyous occasion. Her face is still so round. Lu Qing chuckled and took out the red envelope he had prepared in advance. To the left of the entrance was the place to sign in and receive cash gifts. Lu Yanwei and his wife stood there, welcoming guests with a smile. You're back? As a relative, Lu Yanwei recognized him immediately even though Lu Qing was wearing black-rimmed glasses and a baseball cap that covered half of his face. He hesitated but didn't show it. Of course. Lu Qing chuckled and handed the red envelope to his cousin. He looked around and said, Let's talk about it later. There are quite a lot of guests. He turned to look at Tongning and called out with a smile, Hello, Tongning. Hello, sister-in-law. Tang Ning was a pretty girl from a humble family. She looked a little strange with the heavy makeup on her wedding day. She and Lu Yanwei were online dating. They dated for a long time and spent some time together in real life before they got married. She responded to Lu Cheng's greeting with a smile. When he entered the banquet hall, she came back to her senses. She opened her eyes wide and approached Lu Yanwei. She whispered in his ear, Your younger brother? The famous younger brother? Yeah. Lu Yanwei smiled and nodded proudly. He squeezed the red envelope and found that it was so thin that he couldn't feel anything. He opened it curiously and saw only a piece of paper. He took it out and scanned it. It was a check. At this moment, he suddenly remembered the joke that Lu Qing had made in the family group chat. Then I'll close my eyes and press 0. It's fate to write more or less. It's true. Lu Yanwei was both amused and dumbfounded. Stepping into the banquet hall, Lu Qing looked around and sensed his surroundings. In an instant he found his parents. They were helping to greet some familiar guests, such as his ex-neighbor, Zhao Zijuan, who was already a director. His daughter and my brother went on a blind date. Wouldn't it be awkward for her to come to his wedding? Lu Qing complained in his heart. He leaned over and said in a low voice, Dad, Mom, Uncle Zhao, Auntie Huang. Qi Fang glared at him. Why didn't you come back last night? We have to hurry. All kinds of things happen when you're out there. Zhao Zijuan chimed in and responded to Lu Cheng's greeting in a slightly restrained manner. When he first approached Lu Jisheng and his wife, he thought that his son was acquainted with Director Xing and had a good relationship with him. Furthermore, his son had potential, background, and a bright future. Who would have thought that in just a few short years, he would have a bright future, let alone a Xioshan prefecture-level city police chief? His status and identity no longer needed others to set him off. Thinking back, it was like a dream. Yeah, I haven't seen Fatty Jiang and Jiang Fei in a long time. Lu Qing smiled. After a few words of greeting, Zhao Zijuan said goodbye and returned to his seat. After a few steps, he suddenly turned around and said with a smile, Director Xing is here too. Uncle Xing is here too? Where is he? Lu Qing was surprised. He didn't know his cousin. In front. Zhao Zijuan looked at Lu Cheng's disguise. Do you want me to call him? No need. I'll call him directly. Lu Qing waved his phone. Okay. Then we'll wait for the wedding to start. Zhao Zijuan and Huang Kun returned to their seats reluctantly. Lu Qing dialed the number and walked out of the banquet hall to a secluded lounge. After a few minutes, he heard Xing Chengwu's hearty laughter. You just came back? Yeah, I just put my luggage down and came back. I didn't expect to see you here. Lu Qing greeted him with a smile. Xing Chengwu laughed and said, I'm familiar with your brother. He has been following Erzi for 2 years and is familiar with the land in Xioshan. Some of the higher-ups didn't come because of their status, but they all sent gifts. TSK, he had made a name for himself. Even if he didn't follow Erzi, with such connections, he could do anything in Xioshan as long as he didn't break the law. Lu Qing was surprised and happy at the same time. He joked, Uncle Xing as the police chief, it's enough. Xing Chengwu replaced the retired director a month ago and officially took charge of the Xioshan police system. Are you making fun of your Uncle Xing? Xing Chengwu stared at him deliberately. I'm the director and most of the people give you face. I didn't mention anything. Lu Qing spread his hands and smiled. He asked, I heard that Sister Jingjing took the initiative to practice and won't be back until Chinese New Year? As for where he heard it from, of course it was his classmate Ke. She has the guidance of a physical invulnerability senior, who specializes in illusion-type martial arts. She's making rapid progress. In 1 or 2 years, she might even reach the inhuman level and surpass me, her father. Xing Chengwu's face glowed with pride when he talked about his daughter's growth. Like father, like daughter. Lu Qing joked. Xing Chengwu chatted happily for a while, then suddenly sighed and said, She's good at everything now, but she's still not willing to come into contact with men. Sigh, as parents, we don't ask for much. What we want is for our children to have a companion by their side when they grow up after we pass away. They can talk to each other, and they won't be alone in the house. That's what it means when young couples grow old. Actually, being a bachelor isn't bad. It's more comfortable and relaxing. Lu Cheng's voice gradually became softer and less convincing. Xing Chengwu's eyes were clearly saying that a man with a girlfriend who was about to get married had no right to say such things. Xing Chengwu wiped his hair with his hand that was as thick as a bear's paw and said, Sai, you don't have to comfort me. Your aunt and I have thought about it. Jingjing hates men. We won't force her. Anyway, it's fine as long as she has a companion. We can also accept girls. Lu Qing was speechless for a moment. After a long time, he gave a thumbs up and said, Uncle Xing, you guys are so fashionable. After chatting for a while, Lu Qing and Xing Chenggu returned to the banquet hall and sat down. Lu Qing was worried that people would remember his disguise, so he decided to show his real face. After all, the people at the same table were his grandparents, aunts, and cousins. But even so, as soon as he sat down, he felt many gazes on him. Some were excited, some were curious, and some were pointing at him and discussing animatedly. Brother Lu Qing, I finally understand what it means to be a public figure, Qi Yunfei, who was studying in university, said with a smile. Since leaving Xiushan and going to Gaofun, she had been dressing fashionably. Coupled with her cute and pretty face, she had many suitors. Just as Lu Qing was about to answer, he suddenly saw a girl with big eyes, hunched over from the other side of the wedding platform. She took out her notebook and pen excitedly and nervously, saying, "Hello, Mr. Zhang. Lu Qing, can I have your autograph?" Okay. Lu Qing casually took the pen and paper and scribbled his name on the paper. He wrote his name in a flamboyant style. At this time, he found that a few people were ready to move. He passed the pen and paper back and said to the girl with big eyes, "You told them not to come together one by one and not to ruin the wedding, right?" Yes. The girl nodded vigorously and then turned back. She lowered her voice and said to her companions, He talked to me. So you've forgotten what I've told you?" Lu Qing had excellent hearing and almost covered his face. After the commotion, it was finally quiet. Qi Yunfei looked at him with a smile and took out a thick notebook and pen from her bag. "Brother Lu Qing, I almost forgot if they didn't ask for your autograph. Come sign it every page." "Are you rebelling?" Lu Qing said with a smile. "Brother Lu Qing, Sister Feifei wants to be a profiteer." Chun Xiaoxiao, who was still in high school and still had baby fat, exposed her sister's purpose. Feeling the gaze of her cousin, mother, grandfather, grandmother, and others, Qi Yunfei smiled embarrassedly. "You don't know, Brother Lu Qing's autograph is very valuable. It can be sold for so much." She stretched out 5 fingers and gestured. Lu Qing was dumbfounded. He took the pen and paper and began to sign. "I was thinking that since I'm officially working, I should give some New Year's money to my sisters and brothers who are still in school. Since you can earn it yourself, I'll give you a share." Qi Yunfei's smile froze and she asked blankly, "Brother Lu Qing, how much are you going to give? I'm not stingy, am I right, Xiaoxiao?" Lu Qing casually gave a number. After his grandfather Qi Jiayu and grandmother Kong Meizhen heard this, they said at the same time, "How can you give so much? You have to spend your money wisely. It's a waste for them to give so much money." "It's not much." Lu Qing evaded the question. Qi Yunfei's lips moved a few times and she said with a sad face, "Brother Lu Qing, I don't want your autograph, I'm wrong. It's already been signed." Lu Qing replied with a smile, "Is this still my brother?" She was sad and indignant. Lu Qing laughed and said, "Only real brothers are like this. I hate you." Qi Yunfei pretended to be teary. While they were fooling around, the wedding officially began. Lu Qing took out his phone and took pictures and recorded videos to send to his wife. When the bride's father sent her off, the host began to reminisce about the past. The bride couldn't help but cry. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched and he couldn't help but complain to his little fairy on QQ. Weddings nowadays really have to be forcefully moved. It's a joyous occasion, but it always makes people sad. That's right. It's so awkward. We don't need a host in the future. Nodding like a chick pecking at rice. Then how do we proceed? Stunned expression. Lu Qing asked back. You can partner with talker, you can also do a crosstalk, covering mouth and laughing expression. The girl said. Where's the dignity of a physical invulnerability expert? Covering face and sighing expression. Lu Qing said. The rest of the wedding process went smoothly. For the next half a month, Lu Qing stayed at home with his parents except for a few days in Ningxue. Of course, there were also some social activities. It was good to maintain a good relationship with his parents in his hometown. Chapter 689. As New Year's Eve approached, Lu Qing boarded a flight to America. After a long and bumpy flight, he finally arrived in Connecticut. After passing the security check, He secretly heaved a sigh of relief and praised. You have the bearing of a great nation. After the Talon incident, they actually didn't deny him a visa. They didn't even find an excuse to deny him entry when all the necessary procedures were in place. This is the demeanor of a great nation with confidence. Lu Qing let go of his hidden worries and his mood lightened. He followed the crowd and walked forward. In the Office of Homeland Security in Orion Airport, the person in charge of Connecticut looked at the computer in front of him, which was constantly emitting alarms. He picked up his cup of coffee, took a sip, and pretended to be calm. That bunch of idiots. F***ck them. Why did they give this guy a visa? He cursed angrily after his tongue was scalded by the black coffee. Who should I send to monitor an expert in the terror grade, who was specially marked with the words calamity and misfortune? Someone who's good at socializing and has outstanding eloquence? He'll definitely be discovered anyway. Why did I send Smith to the Intelligence Bureau? If he was still around, everyone would be relieved. The person in charge had a headache. After 2 minutes of thinking, he decided to consult his superior, the overall boss of the Connecticut area's intelligence, security, and investigation system, the arbiter of the local terror grade experts, the guardian of order, and the famous Odin of the New World, Mr. Gonzalez. Without a doubt, he was also a veteran terror grade expert. After the call went through, hearty laughter came from the other end. Little Charles, have you encountered a problem? Yes, Your Excellency Gonzalez. Lu Qing from China is here again. The person in charge, Charles, answered simply. Gonzalez let out a long sigh. Too bad I'm on vacation. You know, I've accumulated a lot of vacations. I fully trust that you can handle this. Lu from China isn't an expert who ignores the law. It'll be easy to coordinate and communicate well. Yes, Your Excellency Gonzalez. Charles put down the phone and fell into a daze. I just had dinner with him the day before yesterday. I didn't hear him say he was going on vacation. Covering his face with his hands, he calmed down for a few seconds before picking up the phone again. He called in an agent, the one with the least experience and background. Entering the arrival hall, Lu Qing saw Ku at first glance. After that, they hugged, held hands, smiled, and chatted as usual. From time to time, they would exchange some mushy words. It was only when they got into Du Yan's car that they restrained themselves. After successfully arriving at Yenjika's residence in the North District of Connecticut, Lu Qing held her hand and excitedly walked to the front of the house. He opened the door by himself. At this time, Yenjika rolled her eyes and suddenly said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you something." "What?" Lu Qing heard the sound of the door unlocking and pushed the door open with a smile. "My parents said they haven't spent the new year with me for years, so they flew here yesterday to give me a surprise." Yenjika pursed her lips, feeling both helpless and amused. At the same time, the door opened. Empress Dowager Ji Mingyu, who was helping to clear the table, and Yen Kai, who was busy in the kitchen, came into view. Surprise. The corner of Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He quickly put on a smile and shouted, "Auntie, Uncle. Lu, you're here. It's almost time for dinner. Go put your luggage down." Ji Mingyu smiled calmly. Yen Kai also turned his body, looked over, and nodded in greeting. At this time, Yenjika leaned over and whispered in his ear, "I've prepared a new room for you on the second floor." This. Lu Qing turned his head and looked at his wife. He smiled and said, "This is pretty good." A week passed quickly. Lu Qing boarded the flight to Wuyue province. Recalling the festive atmosphere and daily life of the past few days, he couldn't help but laugh and shake his head. Sometimes sneaking around is also a form of pleasure. But I can only stay for a few days. It'll be over before I know it. The next time will be in October. In between, he could only rely on Ku to return home during spring break and summer break. He came in a hurry and left in a hurry. Holding his phone, Lu Qing looked out the window and watched the flight leave the ground. At this moment, other than Yenjika, who was reluctant to part, many of the big shots in Connecticut felt much more relaxed. Gonzalez ended his holiday immediately and bid farewell to the beach filled with sunshine and beauties. After staying with his master for a few days, Lu Qing returned home for the 15th. Putting away his lazy and idle feelings, he embarked on the journey of the new year energetically. On the day he returned to Huaxing, he didn't rest and went straight to the Longhu Club. With the help of the volcano laboratory, he tried out the new idea that came to him in the past month. As the boss, and with his little fairy's instructions, he gave his assistant, Amen, and driver, Zhao Zhenhua, a big red packet each. In local terms, it was called profit. After training and showering, Lu Qing dried his hair. He asked Amen to ask if Empress Luo was in the office. After getting an affirmative answer, he went straight and knocked on the door. Sister Ning, Happy New Year. He pushed the door open and cupped his hands with a smile. Ning Zitong was dressed in bright red but didn't look gaudy at all. Instead, it made her seem a few years younger. You don't have to be so formal. Didn't we just call to wish each other a Happy New Year? Ning Zitong fiddled with her bracelet and leaned back with a smile. Tell me, what do you want to ask? I'm considered proficient in the fire sect, but I can't fall behind in the ice sect. I wonder if the military has a place like the polar laboratory nearby. I can't possibly fly to Moshang twice a week, right? Lu Qing went straight to the point. There is. It's about a 2-hour drive. Ning Zitong smiled. You can look for your master for this. Why ask me? There's no need to trouble two people with the same problem. Lu Qing answered in a good mood after solving the problem. Ning Zitong pondered for a while and said, although the follow-up investigation on the Talon incident hasn't yielded any results yet, from the reaction of the Witch King, Ruoxin, to disappear without a trace, it's not a small matter. The military and America are preparing to work together to reconfirm the direction and expand the scope of the investigation. You've contributed quite a bit. After some discussion, we've decided to let you comprehend the restriction sect's Clear Jade chapter in advance. Wouldn't that make it seem too official? Lu Qing wasn't mentally prepared at all. He blurted out in surprise. Just by looking at it now, I don't think my merits are enough, right? You can't just look at yourself. Ning Zitong laughed. Actually, this is to compensate your master. Back then, he refused to become a real member of the military or join the Longhu Club. That's why he couldn't practice the restriction sect divine arts. If we're just going by merits, he's more than enough to satisfy you 800 times. Since he's a stubborn master, I'll let his disciple take advantage of him. Lu Qing was stunned for a few seconds. Half surprised and half confused, he said, judging from my master's appearance, he seems to be very interested in the restriction sect divine arts. He can actually resist the temptation? And from what he said to me, he doesn't seem to have any old-fashioned sect ideology. Master doesn't seem very reliable usually. Who would have thought that he's the kind of elder who knows what to do and what not to do? Geezer, who was far away in Moshang, sneezed and muttered. Who's scolding me? Ning Zitong heard Lu Cheng's words and shook her head with a smile. That was before he was seriously injured. After his injury, he's gotten over many things. Besides, in the words of you youngsters, he's just a mouth cannon. Lu Qing didn't know how to respond to his master's teasing, so he could only reply with a smile. All right, get ready. You'll go to the capital in 2 days to comprehend. Ning Zitong explained with a smile. The item isn't with us. Elder Mei is looking after it. At this point she sighed and said, I hope you can gain something. We might not be counting on the Dragon King for the opening match of this year's professional tournament. Is the Dragon King injured? Lu Qing guessed. During the Spring Festival, the Dragon King had accepted the Warrior Sage's challenge for the Grandmaster title. After 3 tough battles, he had lost. At that time, Lu Qing had thought that he might have fought too hard and gotten injured. A little, but it's not serious. But it's going to be the finals of the Supreme Class battle soon. Given the Dragon King's ambition, he definitely won't give up. When the time comes, his injuries will most likely worsen. Seriously, the finals of the Grandmaster and Supreme Class battle are arranged too close together. Ning Zitong grumbled. Yeah. Lu Qing nodded slowly. Then he asked, Sister Ning, are the matchups for the professional tournament out yet? Who are we up against? It's out, but it hasn't been announced yet. Ning Zitong rubbed her forehead and said, in 2 weeks, as the defending champion of the world #1, we will accept the challenge from the Guanwei League on our home ground. God-slaying Saber Lu Yongyuan. That was the first name that came to Lu Cheng's mind when he heard the Guanwei League. Without the Dragon King, the club would probably be at a disadvantage. Seeing that Lu Cheng was silent, Ning Zitong chuckled. Don't be too nervous. Lu Yongyuan is from the same generation as me. I don't think I'll lose to him. As for the others, do you know? They have a new physical invulnerability expert. Who is it? I haven't heard of anyone advancing recently. Lu Cheng was confused. Not from China. She's from Japan. You know her, Kaori Karasawa, Ning Zitong said with a smile. You can invite a foreign mighty one? Lu Cheng asked in surprise. I met her in Huaqing because of this. I thought she was going to fulfill her promise and challenge the priest. I even reminded that unreliable guy not to miss out on the peach blossom, just because he was in a daze. There's no rule against it. It's just that as a special guest, Kaori Karasawa can't practice the martial arts of the Guanwei League. She can only fight with money. Yeah, I heard that her idea is to improve more through actual combat, explained Ning Zitong. Then she smiled sweetly and continued. This news has stirred up the media. There will be reports in a few days. I already know quite a few headlines, such as Japan's strongest genius admires Chinese culture, and beaten into submission here to learn. I can imagine the reaction from Japan. Kaori Karasawa must be under a lot of pressure. Lu Cheng's doubts were gone. Leaning back, he smiled and said, It's not bad to have a rematch with her. Chapter 690. 2 days later, in the still chilly capital. When Lu Cheng stepped into the courtyard house again, Elder Mei was tending to the flowers and plants leisurely and contented. He had changed into a black short robe, looking neither ancient nor modern. His silver hair was much thinner, and the loneliness in his eyes was more apparent. Greetings, Elder Mei. Lu Cheng bowed respectfully. Old Mei raised his head. His eyebrows, which were about to pop out of his face, twitched twice. The second room on the left. Thank you, Elder. Lu Cheng didn't waste time. He strode towards the left side of the courtyard. Elder Mei lowered his head and focused on the flowers again, as though nothing else mattered to him. Lu Cheng stepped onto the stairs and stopped in front of his destination. He stared at the windowless room for a few seconds before pushing open the door with a mottled bronze lock. The door creaked for a long time, and the scene inside slowly appeared before his eyes. The floor was paved with green bricks, and there was nothing on it. The spacious and cold feeling was obvious. It was as though even in summer, this place would still feel like late autumn. Lu Cheng didn't look around. Instead, his gaze was attracted by a painting hanging on the opposite wall. It was dark all around, unaffected by external light. He could only vaguely make out a Taoist in the middle of the painting. It was a Taoist who bore some resemblance to the heavenly primogenitor statue in the Taoist temple. Even with Lu Cheng's current realm and strength, he couldn't see it clearly. Instinctively, he took a few steps forward into the room and got closer. Light gathered in his eyes, as though a huge sun had taken shape. It shone in front of him, trying to pierce through the darkness. At this moment, his vision blurred. The surrounding was covered in boundless darkness. In the distance, bright spots, pure white and dazzling, moved slowly along a mysterious path. The universe of stars. Why did it appear naturally? Just as this thought flashed through Lu Cheng's mind, he suddenly saw a jade-white palm pressing down on him. Its 5 fingers clenched, and the center of its palm was dark and deep. The starry sky and the universe became smaller and smaller, more and more solidified. Crack. The stars were destroyed one by one, and the darkness rapidly shrank to a single point. Shortly after, it spurted out and split into pieces. Thump, thump, thump. Lu Cheng took a few steps back until he was outside the room. Blood seeped out of his eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. He was clearly dispirited, and his head was unusually painful. In just a few breaths' time, he felt like he had fought a tough battle with the Dragon King and the Warrior Sage. This is the Forbidden Sex Clear Jade chapter? What kind of realm did the senior who created this divine technique reach? Is it something that can only be encountered but not sought? Amidst his thoughts, Lu Cheng sat down cross-legged and regulated his breathing. Then he visualized the wholeness and confrontation formula in an orderly manner before entering a deep sleep. An hour later, he opened his eyes. His spirit had recovered. Exerting strength in his back, he stood up and stepped into the room again. He looked at the picture scroll shrouded in darkness. The scene was the same as before, but it lasted a few seconds longer than before. 2 times, 3 times. When he endured the pain from his deep sleep and wanted to continue comprehending, he saw old May, who was wearing a short black robe, standing at the door. Go back, ponder and comprehend more. Before stepping into the forbidden domain, every martial artist will see different scenes due to their own foundation and knowledge. Even the same martial artist will have slight differences in their comprehension after a period of time. Old May said calmly, as long as you complete a mission every year, you can come here to comprehend once. Hee, don't bite off more than you can chew. Digest what you've learned before. Yes, Senior May. Lu Cheng suppressed the melancholy in his heart. He turned and walked towards the door of the courtyard. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly turned back and asked, Senior May, can I share my comprehension of the forbidden sex divine techniques with others? If the other martial artists don't mind. Old May smiled faintly. A few days later, the finals of the Supreme Class battle began. The defending champion, Warrior Sage, Qian Donglu, the challenger, Dragon King, Chen Qitao, the clown, Gu Jianxi, and the Wisdom King, Ji Hai. It was a single round-robin competition. If the 3 of them had the same results and formed a closed loop, there would be additional matches. Lu Cheng and Empress Luo's worries came true in the first match. Due to the drawing of lots, the Dragon King faced the Warrior Sage head-on. This time he won, but he was heavily injured. After that, the Wisdom King, Ji Hai, took advantage of the internecine battle between the legendary twins. He won all 3 matches and became the Supreme Class Mighty One of this year, obtaining his 2nd individual title. He was far ahead of his peers like Lu Qing, Peng Liyun, and Ren Li. Not long after the Supreme Class battle ended, the flames of war reignited in the top professional matches. A new season was about to begin. The previous world number 1 Longhu Club was in charge of this. They would be stationed at MT Crimson in Huaqing to welcome the challenge from the Guanwai League. On Friday afternoon, the sky was gloomy and the humidity was heavy. A luxurious minibus drove out of the airport towards Guyue Hotel. On the bus sat the physical invulnerability experts of the Guanwai League and their assistants. Kaori Karasawa wasn't wearing her kimono anymore. Instead, she had changed into the Guanwai League's away martial arts uniform with a white base and red embellishments. The fukijimaru was hidden in its scabbard across her knees. From the corner of her eye, she observed Lu Yongyuan, who was sitting by the window opposite her. His hair was neatly combed back, and he was calmly admiring the scenery outside. The world-renowned god-slaying saber was standing calmly beside him, leaning against the seat. Its dark green scabbard shone faintly. Kaori Karasawa didn't retract her gaze. Instead, she adjusted her sitting posture as though she was imitating him. Just like when she first entered the Shinjai sect, and was accepted as a disciple by her master. In those few years she, who was still very short, had always imitated her master's every move, be it in terms of martial arts or daily habits. Through this, she cultivated her bearing and adjusted her mind. Only when she had mastered kendo did she slowly develop her own style. Master once said that every mighty one starts by imitating their seniors. Now I'll treat it as me starting anew. I'll start by imitating Senior Lu. He was a grandmaster of saber techniques, and had certain similarities with Japanese kendo. Her master had once visited him in his prime and sparred with him in kendo. He was sincerely convinced by Lu Yongyuan, and believed that the current him was even better than before. It was because of this relationship that she was able to bypass the obstacles and enter the Guanwai League. A mighty one of saber techniques, who could make her master revere him every time he mentioned him, was indeed someone worth imitating. Kaori Karasawa felt that she had once again found the passion she had when she first started practicing kendo. The biggest obstacle now is language. At this moment, the sky darkened even more. The pitter-patter of rain suddenly fell, blurring the car windows. Spring rain. Kaori Karasawa thought in a daze. Suddenly, she heard Lu Yongyuan mumbling to himself in a low voice. It's raining. Outside the window, the rain was getting heavier. The dark green scabbard beside Lu Yongyuan let out a continuous and long groan. It was as though the dullness had disappeared and was replaced by joy. It was as though a real dragon had finally broken free from its shackles and was soaring in the sky, summoning clouds and rain. Clang! The hum of the saber reverberated. Kaori Karasawa seemed to have been touched by something, but couldn't think clearly. It's raining. Ning Zitong sighed as she looked out of the window in the Longhu Club conference room. It's not like you haven't seen rain before, Kochian replied impatiently. He then looked at Lu Qing and Guijia. Let's continue talking about the Guanwai League. Okay. Having lived in Huaqing for so long, Lu Qing was used to rain. Even if it was the first rain of spring, Guijia didn't even look sideways. Her eyes were glued to the projection screen, even if the chances of her fighting were slim. As for the Dragon King, he was receiving comprehensive treatment in the hospital, and would only be able to fight again in another 10 days. Lu Yan nodded and said bluntly, the Guanwai League isn't strong. Other than Lu Yongyuan, there are quite a few physical invulnerability experts, but none of them can reach first pin. Lu Yongyuan is the last to speak. Since he created his own saber technique, his strength has been increasing day by day. Now that he's qualified to fight for a title, we have to take him seriously. Other than him, the Guanwai League has 2 second pin experts, 1 third pin, and a new member, Kaori Karasawa, who hasn't reported to the association yet. The 2 second pin experts are Golden Fur Ho, Li Pingao, and Mirage Dragon, Zhu Xiaoyan. At the mention of Golden Fur Ho, Ning Zitong glanced at Lu Cheng and burst out laughing, ruining the solemn atmosphere that Lu Yan had deliberately created. Actually, I feel that nicknames like God of Misfortune and God of Calamity are much better than Ho Lai Lai Lai, she said. I wanted to change my nickname too, but no one listened. Lu Qing said helplessly. That Mirage Dragon, Zhu Xiaoyan, was famous for her illusions. She should be the physical invulnerability expert currently teaching Sister Jingjing. Thump, thump, thump. Lu Yan knocked on the table a few times and continued. The Guanwai League had high hopes for Li Pingao, believing that he would reach first pin very quickly. After a few years of accumulation, he might even have the chance to fight for a title. However, his growth wasn't as expected. Some said that shortly after his promotion he encountered the Dragon King and lost his confidence. Some said that his father, whom he had always depended on, passed away the year he reached physical invulnerability. This left him devastated. Chapter 691. Lu Cheng had never expressed his opinion on people he didn't know well enough. He listened quietly as Coach Lu Yan continued. Li Pingao has the supernatural ability to metallize his body. Guanwai League also has a similar physical invulnerability martial arts. Hence, he chose this path instead of the dark sect. His speed, strength, agility, endurance, and recovery are all outstanding. His style is bold and aggressive. The nickname Golden Ho isn't just for show. Why do I feel like you're scolding me? Lu Qing covered half of his face. Ever since he reached physical invulnerability, Li Pingao has disappointed the older generation of Guanwai League experts time and time again. He's become quieter and quieter, Ning Zitong added. This reminds me of a saying, if you don't explode in silence, you die in silence. You can't underestimate him. At this point, she sighed. When the top professional competition was first established, Guanwai League was one of the top 3 powers. Every physical invulnerability expert of the older generation was a force to be reckoned with. It's a pity that after a few decades, the old are old, the young are young, and the useless are useless. Other than Lu Yongyuan, they don't have anyone else. They're always at the bottom of the rankings and might be demoted if they're not careful. To the top powers, even a physical invulnerability expert like Li Pingao is considered useless. Indeed, it's all about comparison. Lu Cheng was speechless. He was glad that he had a clear goal and a firm path. Lu Yan looked at Ning Zitong, who interrupted him. He coughed and said, Guanwai League's other second pin fighter, Zhu Xiaoyan, is gifted with the power of illusion. She once defeated an inhuman with her powerful supernatural ability when she was at the 6th pin stage. However, it took her a full 5 years to master it and incorporate the outstanding bloodline ability into her martial arts. She barely made the great leap at the age of 28 and reached physical invulnerability. She has great potential. She's not even 30 this year, and is already a second pin. However, it'll be difficult for her to reach the next level. The unique skills of the illusion sect have been missing for a long time. Guanhui League only has a small portion of it. Although the dark sect has similar content, it's only one aspect. Zhu Xiaoyan will either be stuck at her current level or like Lu Yongyuan. She'll be able to integrate all her knowledge, bloodline power, and insights to find her own path and create her own martial arts. If that's the case, her future will be limitless and she's qualified to fight for titles. After introducing Zhu Xiaoyan's general situation, Lu Yan didn't even have the time to catch his breath. I think she's Lu Yongyuan is. She sees Lu Yongyuan, and Lu Yongyuan. I think. Hearing Ning Zitong mention Zhu Xiaoyan's hobbies, Lu Yan's face darkened. He looked at Lu Cheng and said in a deep voice, her illusions have already reached the level of passing off falsehood as reality, which is a perfect counter to enemy heart-freezing move. However, you still have the ability to predict danger. If you encounter her, your chances of winning are very high. Yeah. Lu Cheng nodded solemnly, but in his heart he was wondering with great interest what kind of dark history Zhu Xiaoyan had in her hands. Seeing Lu Cheng's good attitude, Lu Yan nodded in satisfaction. The two of them, together with Lu Yongyuan, were the main force of Guanhui League last year. Third pin Zheng Shi duo was the substitute. If two or more of them were injured, the older generation mighty ones would step in. Otherwise, they would pick one of the disciples close to the physical invulnerability stage to experience actual combat. However, they've added Kaori Karasawa from Japan this year. I don't think there will be such a situation. Zheng Shi duo, 29 years old. He's been a physical invulnerability expert for more than 2 years. He's 196 meters tall, but he's still growing. He specializes in the unique skills of the dark sect, and often acts impulsively. If nothing goes wrong, he'll be the substitute tomorrow. Kaori Karasawa has just made the great leap a few months ago. There's no record of her fighting at this stage. Her exact strength and standard are unknown. She might be a surprise fighter. After analyzing them one by one, Lu Yan's expression turned solemn. Empress Luo's style gives her an obvious advantage against weaker opponents. We can't let her face Lu Yongyuan directly. Lu Cheng, you'll be the first to fight. Regardless of whether it's Li Pingao, Zhu Xiaoyan, or Kaori Karasawa, you have to win. This is a small request. You can do it, right? Then, try your best to exhaust the second martial artist. If Lu Yongyuan is the vanguard, things will be much simpler. Guojie, you'll be the second to fight. Before Lu Yan could finish, martial arts fanatic Guojie blurted out. Me? Shouldn't the opening battle be a safe one? As the coach of a first pin expert, our chances of winning will be higher if you fight. Not confident? You don't want to fight? Lu Yan didn't answer her question. Instead, he asked her a question with a serious expression. Yes. Guojie did not hesitate and answered resolutely. Her face was filled with excitement and excitement. Great. No matter who you're up against, you'll be a battle-hardened fighter. You only have one goal, victory. Lu Yan turned to Ning Zitong. After Guojie exhausts the third martial artist of the Guanhui League, you'll finish the rest. At that time, it shouldn't be a problem for Lu Yongyuan or anyone else. Ning Zitong replied with a calm smile. She continued to talk about the most likely arrangement of the Guanhui League. After Lu Cheng and Guojie left, she frowned and looked at Lu Yan. Why did you suddenly let her fight? She's at the standard of a second pin. She's no longer a fledgling, said Lu Yan. It's time to give her some pressure. What pressure can there be if you only let her fight in a match that she's sure to win, or in an individual arena that concerns herself? Only in such an important situation where she might lose can you truly baptize her. Or are you willing to let her learn from the Dragon King and risk her life in a war-torn zone as a physical invulnerability expert? We're not young anymore. We have to focus on the future and give them a chance to step up. Ning Zitong listened in silence. After a long while, she puffed her cheeks like a little girl and sighed. You'll always be more rational than me. The next morning, The blue sky was clear and tranquil. The spring breeze brought some warmth that made one feel exceptionally comfortable. Lu Yongyuan practiced the most basic moves like splitting, slicing, parrying, chopping, and vibrating dozens of times. He was as focused and devoted as when he first started learning the saber. If a mighty one were to pass by, they would be shocked to find that the most basic moves were flawless in Lu Yongyuan's hands. They could even be called perfect. Moreover, every time the same move was performed, there wasn't the slightest difference. Be it the angle or the traces, it was as though he had copied them. When Lu Yongyuan displayed his saber moves, the layers of light expanded like a rolling snowball, giving off a different vibe. It was the same move, the same scene, and the same saber strike, but there were subtle differences. It was as though the moves were changing according to the time and circumstances, but they were never repeated. Without permission, Kaori Karasawa didn't dare to observe the tempering of the god-slaying saber. However, when she practiced her swordsmanship, she felt that there was a hidden charm around her that was long and profound. As there was a competition today, the physical invulnerability experts of the Guanwei League didn't train for too long. They were mainly adjusting and resting. After lunch, they boarded a luxurious minibus and headed to the outskirts of Mt. Chixia. Along the way, Lu Yongyuan closed his eyes and leaned back as though he was taking a nap. When they were about to arrive, he suddenly opened his eyes and said to Kaori Karasawa, "You have a solid foundation and have mastered the swordsmanship of the Shinjai sect. Moreover, outsiders don't know about it. This is the perfect opportunity to give Longhu a surprise." After the translator conveyed the message, Kaori Karasawa's eyes widened. "Senior, you want me to fight?" At this moment Li Pingao, Zhu Xiaoyan, and Zheng Shiduo all looked over. "Yes, catch them by surprise," Lu Yongyuan replied calmly. "You will start the game." Okay. Kaori Karasawa was stunned for a moment before replying with vigor. Lu Yongyuan didn't say anything else. He looked ahead and said, "I'll be the second. I'll bridge the gap and break through the obstacles. If I can meet Empress Luo in my peak condition, it'll be good. If I can't, she won't be able to hold on. Xiaoyan, use your illusions to deal with her. You will have a chance." "Yes." Zhu Xiaoyan's voice was deep and masculine. She was of average height, with wheat-colored skin. Her facial features were elegant, and her eyes were beautiful. Zheng Shiduo didn't have any objections to this arrangement. Li Pingao, whose skin had a slight metallic luster, was even more silent. The car circled around the mountain road and finally arrived at the parking lot. Following the passageway, Kaori Karasawa and the rest felt the dry and scorching air. They saw the crimson arena, in the middle of the road that was protruding from the depressions. Longhu Club Fiery Hell. The audience was gradually arriving and entering the glass rooms and corridors at the edge. This is the battle between the top forces of China. Kaori Karasawa took a deep breath and smelled the burning smell. Her grip on the fugu ball tightened subconsciously. Chapter 692. On the other side of Fiery Hell, far away from the scorching heat of the home team's changing room, Guojie, the martial arts fanatic, sat cross-legged with her palms facing the sky. She maintained a steady rhythm of breathing, long and distant. She didn't care about anything outside of her body. "She's a little nervous." Ning Zitong sighed and sent a message to Lu Yan. Lu Yan kept a straight face as he nodded his head ever so slightly and said, "That's a normal reaction." As he spoke, he couldn't help but look at Lu Cheng, who was typing on his phone. As expected of a guy with a few physical invulnerability experts under his belt. "He's so calm and collected like us old foxes." Lu Cheng ignored the coach's gaze and sent a message to his wife with a smile. "What should I do? The little newbie of the top class is trembling." It was the weekend and Yen Zhika, who had mastered the wholeness formula, decided to indulge herself and stay up late to watch the opening match. "That's not what you said when you challenged the warrior sage." Looking up at the sky expression, mercilessly exposed his pretense. Lu Cheng replied, covering face expression. "I was too excited back then. What about now?" Rolling eyes expression. Yen Zhika replied, "I'm considering many things now. For example, if I were to meet Lu Yongyuan in the opening match, what would I be able to do this time? For example, If fiery hell weakened my ice sex secret arts, it wouldn't be a home-ground advantage. Lu Qing replied seriously. For example, how to flirt with my little fairy. If you're quite carefree. You've even learned how to tease me. Bristling with anger expression, Yanjika burst out laughing. Lu Qing chuckled. This is one of the effective ways to control nervousness. And after so many life-and-death battles, he was quite confident. After chatting for a while, Yanjika changed the topic. Your fan forum has been super lively these few days. Why? Lu Qing was puzzled. Because he was going to be the main player in the Longhu Club's new year? During this period of time, other than chatting with his wife and occasionally calling home, he was in a semi-secluded state. He was racing against time to digest what he had learned from the restriction sect. Clear Jade chapter. He hadn't been on Weibo or forums for more than a week. Yanjika sent a cat emoji that was observing in the dark. Isn't little Wonton studying in Huaqing? She bought tickets to today's competition and wants to cheer for you on the spot. Xiaoling, Brahmin, Niechichi, and Unparalleled Dragon King have all asked her to cheer for you. Lu Qing suddenly realized something. I forgot that little Wonton is studying here. Yanjika praised him in her heart. Cover your mouth and laugh expression. Do you want to design a special celebration for them? As a mighty one with physical invulnerability, keeping a low profile and paying attention to your image is the way to go, replied Lu Qing jokingly. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Uncle Chong. Yanjika replied with an emoji of indifference. Lu Qing took the opportunity to tease him. Lu Yan couldn't take it anymore. He walked over and said after some deliberation, Don't worry. It's going to start in about 10 minutes. You're the first one, so it's best to adjust your condition. I planned to do it when there were only 10 minutes left. Lu Qing gave a hollow laugh and said, All right. After answering, he immediately lowered his head and complained tearfully to his wife. I was despised by the coach. I have to focus on preparing for the competition. Haha, I'll seriously despise you for 5 minutes too, replied Yanjika without any sympathy. Keeping his phone, Lu Qing stood up leisurely. First he moved his neck left and right. Then he slowly executed a set of moves. His movements were relaxed and his rhythm was sluggish, like an old man doing morning exercises. However, each of his punches and kicks were full of charm, giving people a continuous and natural feeling of transcendence. After completing a set of moves, Lu Cheng's thoughts settled and his ice heart formed. The qi and blood in his body were like a melting river, flowing gradually and converging into a flood. This kid is a little different after comprehending the Clear Jade chapter. Ning Zitong watched thoughtfully. She sent a telepathic message to Lu Yan and sighed. Lu Yan replied without a change in his expression. Wasn't it the same when we comprehended it back then? At this moment, the cheers outside grew louder. The curtains of the new top-class professional competition were about to be lifted. After a while, Lu Yan looked at Guijie, who had opened her eyes, and Lu Cheng, who had finished adjusting his condition. With his hands behind his back, he walked out of the changing room. Let's go. Unlike usual, this was the opening match. There was a short ceremony between the two fighters. Lu Cheng flicked his navy blue martial arts suit and followed behind Lu Yan to the arena. The ground beneath his feet was erupting with fire. The cheers of Longhu shook the mountain. Looking around, he saw the petite little Wonton, wearing a pair of orange-rimmed glasses. She was still in the prime of her youth. When she saw Lu Cheng coming, she waved her hands excitedly, completely forgetting the advice of her channel mates. When Lu Cheng nodded and looked away, little Wonton finally remembered the main point. She quickly took out a short navy blue banner from her backpack. Pulling it apart with both hands, she raised it above her head. There was no name on it, only a few big words. We'll be here if you're here. Glancing at it from the corner of his eye, Lu Cheng suddenly remembered the support from last year. When he was at his lowest point, they still stood by him. His heart was instantly filled with warmth. In front of the computer screen, Yin Xiaoling covered her face and sighed. She replied in the live thread. We shouldn't have let little Wonton do this. She's too short and not eye-catching enough. Half of it is blocked. Unparalleled Dragon King immediately replied with a funny face. No matter how short she is, she's still a few centimeters taller than you. Who gave you the confidence to say that? Inner height. Yan Xiaoling habitually made fun of herself. After the simple ceremony, Lu Yan, Lu Yongyuan, and the rest retreated to their respective changing rooms, leaving only Lu Cheng and Kaori Karasawa in the middle of the arena. Please enlighten me, Lu Kuan. Kaori Karasawa bowed politely. She was very unfamiliar with Hua Nation. After knowing that her opponent was Lu Cheng, she asked the translator to give her the pronunciation of these 5 words. Then, she memorized them and repeated them mechanically. Lu Cheng cupped his hands and replied with a smile. I've been looking forward to a rematch with you. Kaori Karasawa didn't understand. Her eyes widened in confusion. Both parties pulled apart and retreated to their designated spots. At this moment, on Japan's largest otaku forum, there were many discussion threads. There were many replies, and it was even more popular than other news. Kaori-chan looks cute in this. Why did she abandon us and go to China? For kendo, Kaori-chan is the most charming when she's serious. Who's her opponent? He looks familiar. I remember now. He lost to Kaori-chan in the previous King of Youth Pro League. He has also entered the realm of gods and devils? Unbelievable. Apart from the true martial arts fanatics, most Japanese only knew about the mighty ones in their own country. They weren't interested or free to know who had reached the physical invulnerability stage in another country. This was the norm in all countries. In the eyes of those who paid attention to this matter, every physical invulnerability mighty one was famous. However, if you were to ask an ordinary person from another country, they would only reply with a puzzled expression. Who is he? Seeing that most people didn't know much about Lu Cheng, an enthusiast stepped forward to explain. Don't underestimate him. Back then, he overtook the champion of the King of Youth Pro League by half a step. He was weak before because he started training late and didn't have the time to become stronger. This is a true mighty one, from the heart to the body. If Kaori-chan doesn't improve beyond expectations, the chances of her losing this match are higher. After reading the explanation, many people replied, he doesn't look like one. Idiot. It's because of the TV broadcast. It can't show that kind of temperament. I want Kaori-chan to win, but I also want to see her teary face. What a contradiction. Pervert. The atmosphere of the forum quickly turned cheerful. Even with the reminder, they still lacked a direct understanding of Lu Cheng's strength. For the two with communication barriers, the 3-minute conversation turned into a pure battle of aura. Kaori Karasawa was calm as she stood amidst the gushing flames. It was as though she was in an ancient meditation hall in the depths of the Henzai-ryu dojo. The floor beneath her feet was smooth and old. The trees outside the window were overgrown, and the moonlight was cold. There was no one around except for the Buddha statue. The solemn Buddha statue stood tall, overlooking the tranquility of the mortal world. She sat cross-legged and looked at it with her eyes closed. Her body and mind were empty, without any obstacles or barriers. Everything around her jumped into Kaori Karasawa's mind. An indescribable and invisible feeling surfaced. Eye of the mind. This was one of the fundamentals of the Shinzai-ryu Kendo. It was similar to the combination of enemy heart-freezing move and prediction ability. However, both aspects were lacking. Kaori Karasawa saw the magma waiting to erupt underground, saw Lu Cheng, and saw a crystal-clear soul that was like a mirror on all sides. She saw her own reflection in the mirror. Every detail was exposed and exceptionally clear. Her mind jolted, and she almost left the eye of the mind state. Calming herself down, Kaori Karasawa maintained her state. She calmly opened her eyes and made eye contact with Lu Cheng. Her back arched naturally and her right hand gripped the hilt of her Fukigemaru. She was like a divine weapon with a hidden edge, waiting for the day when she would shine brightly. After some time, the referee, who had retreated to the edge, raised his right hand and shouted, "Begin!" The curtains of the new top-tier professional tournament had officially begun. Kaori Karasawa suddenly stepped forward. Her body rippled like water and appeared before Lu Cheng in a flash. Clang! A bright white light shone, so fast that no one could see its trajectory. Ground shrink. Unsheath. To Kaori Karasawa, the combination of these two ultimate moves was as easy as breathing or eating. She was fast, and so was Lu Cheng. As Kaori Karasawa ground shrink, Lu Cheng stepped forward and closed the distance between them. His right fist hammered down heavily, hitting the side of the katana to stop its edge from slicing through the air. If not for Kaori Karasawa's shocking speed of ground shrink, he could have pressed down on her palm and pushed the katana back into its scabbard. Kaori Karasawa didn't panic. Instead, it was as if she had returned to the meditation hall and saw the Buddha statue. Clang! The empty scabbard in her left hand pierced out towards Lu Cheng's lower abdomen. It was comparable to unsheath. This was a sure kill move. Shinzai-ryu takedown, double dragon takedown. Chapter 693. Kaori Karasawa held her scabbard in a reverse grip, infusing her chi into it and retracting her wrist. Dragging a trail of dazzling light behind her, she struck her enemy in a half-stabbing, half-head-on fashion. Before the advent of the information age, countless warriors and swordsmen had lost their lives to the double dragon takedown of the Shinjai sect. But now, as long as it wasn't a hasty encounter and one was mentally prepared, the opponent would more or less be prepared for such changes. As expected, Lu Cheng retracted his left arm and punched across his chest. His fist landed awkwardly on the scabbard with purple flames. Bam! Bam! 2 consecutive bangs and dazzling light scattered. Both of Kaori Karasawa's attacks were firmly blocked. However, her heart was as calm as an ancient well. She didn't show the slightest sign of depression, as though she had already expected this. Clang! She bent her right elbow and swung it away. Her long saber slashed out at lightning speed. Its sharpness was bone-piercing. Wherever it passed, droplets of water formed in the air and vaguely formed clouds. This was the Flying Bird takedown, a weakened version of the Shinjai sect's Flying Dragon takedown. But when used by the current Kaori Karasawa, its speed was almost on par with the Flying Dragon takedown Lu Cheng had used when they first met. Boom! Lu Cheng straightened his arm and punched upwards with his heavy fist. It landed on the saber and covered it in a layer of crimson red. That was then, and this was now. The current Lu Cheng was even more different from the past. Boom! Kaori Karasawa's scabbard followed closely behind. Her swallow return was tight and swift. It presented a ferocious momentum that was a stark contrast to her quiet, pretty image. Kaboom! 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 Kaori Karasawa's chi pierced through the rainbow. Her blowfish ball and scabbard alternated swallow return, unleashing wave after wave of slashes. Yen Xiaoling and the rest in front of the screen subconsciously held their breaths as their hearts raced. 3 swallow return, 4 swallow return, 5 swallow return. Kaori Karasawa had exceeded her previous limits effortlessly. The gleam of her blade overlapped with each other, and it was hard to distinguish the two from the afterimages. The ball of light grew bigger and bigger. Lu Cheng raised both of his arms. His fists were covered in purple flames. Like a machine with precise settings, he blocked continuously without missing a beat. He also borrowed the core technique of the ancestor of physical invulnerability of the 24 blizzard strikes. The more he blocked, the faster he moved. The more he hit, the fiercer he became. The temperature around him rose rapidly. Back then, he had been defeated by 4 return of swallows. Now, even 5 return of swallows, 6 return of swallows, and 7 return of swallows could not shake him in the slightest. Rumble! 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 Tang Zai's saber light continued to flow, and the swallow return seemed to be endless until his opponent collapsed. 7 return swallows, 8 return swallows, 9 return swallows. Kaori Karasawa's 10th slash suddenly changed direction, her scabbard slashing vertically towards the space between her and Lu Cheng. Bang! The airflow spread out instantly, forming a vacuum in the area. With the help of the pressure created by the imbalance, everything in the surroundings was thrown into the vacuum. Lu Cheng also started to lean forward. Shinjai sect, vacuum extraction. Snap! Kaori Karasawa's right hand paused for a moment, followed by an almost inaudible compressing sound. Vacuum extraction followed by flying dragon extraction was the sure kill combo of the Shinjai sect. A ray of white light suddenly appeared, streaking across the horizon, leaving behind a cone-shaped cloud behind it. With an unavoidable speed, it slashed at Lu Cheng's body. Lu Cheng's silhouette was instantly distorted, shattering like a mirage. Kaori Karasawa's gaze froze. He had already dodged when vacuum extraction took effect, leaving behind only an illusion? How did he fool my mind eye? Rumble. It was only then that the sound of the saber light slicing through the air could be heard. The sonic boom created huge waves that slammed ferociously in a direction other than the attacker. As the drone's camera shook violently, the faint purple flames were like a wall, sticking close to the ground and burning towards Kaori Karasawa. Kaori Karasawa suddenly realized that the temperature around her was extremely high. Everything around her was distorted, like a mirage. Just breathing would burn her airway and cause injuries. A thought flashed through her mind, and she instantly understood why she was fooled. Unknowingly, Lu Cheng had already used his home ground environment to complete the setup of the 8th move of the fire sect, Mirage Suffocating Hell. Through the dual influence of reality and mind, he prevented himself from seeing through the illusion. With a sidestep, Kaori Karasawa shrank and dodged to the side, avoiding the burning of the faint purple flames. Just as she steadied herself, the hot air around her changed shape, outlining a navy blue silhouette. Lu Cheng pulled back his shoulder, and his fist shot forward, rubbing against the air at high speed. It ignited the faint purple flames and landed heavily on his opponent's right shoulder. Kaori Karasawa didn't panic. The scabbard in her left hand shot out diagonally, swallowing the katana. She then let go of her right hand, allowing the hilt to take advantage of the momentum to crash into Lu Cheng's left fist. Clang! The tachi retracted back into the scabbard, perfectly fitting. Lu Cheng's fist exploded with flames and bounced off. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Kaori Karasawa twisted her back, her right hand once again gripping the hilt of her katana. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. She unsheathed her katana, changed her footwork, and slashed a few times at high speed. 8 bright and clear rays of light slashed at Lu Cheng from left, right, front, and back. It was like a giant snake with 8 heads attacking, biting, and frenzied. Shinjai Sek's profound move, Chaos of Yamada. At this moment, Lu Cheng seemed to be in the middle of a blooming lotus of light, with layers of petals rapidly closing in. Kaori Karasawa's attack wasn't over yet. After executing Chaos of Yamada, she jumped up, locked the hilt of her scabbard, held her katana with both hands, and slashed down against the wind. Her inner chi released a dazzling arc of light, sealing off the last possibility of her opponent's evasion. It was as though she could slice everything in her path in half. This was the most basic, and most unadorned move in Japanese kendo, downwind single slash. It was used at the right time, flawlessly. Lu Cheng's face was as calm as an ancient well. Instead, his eyes shone with interest and eagerness. His palms, burning with faint purple flames, suddenly clasped together when Chaos of Yamada struck, compressing all the flames into a tiny point. Bam! As he separated his palms, the flames exploded. The purple flame spread in all directions like a prairie fire, wearing down the 8 rays of light with terrifying heat and its own shockwaves. The first move of the fire sect, Prairie Fire. Clang! Lu Cheng took advantage of the momentum to raise his arms and clasped his palms together again, sandwiching Kaori Karasawa's tachi in the middle. It was so precise that it was as though he had rehearsed it dozens or hundreds of times. Poof poof poof. The remaining 8 rays of light landed on Lu Cheng's body, but they were already spent. They barely managed to cut through his clothes, but were easily neutralized by the swelling of his muscles and skin. Buzz buzz buzz. Caught in the middle, Kaori Karasawa's wrist vibrated rapidly, causing the blade to vibrate incessantly like a chainsaw. At the same time, she exerted strength in her back and pulled out a razor-like glow from her feet, kicking Lu Cheng's chest consecutively. However, as soon as Lu Cheng caught the fugu ball, he sent it outwards, causing Kaori Karasawa to fly backwards in midair. Her high-frequency vibrating blade could only cut through the air current, causing the razor she pulled out from her feet to hit empty air. He didn't chase after her. Instead, he strode forward at a moderate pace, gradually forming scarlet, faint purple, and finally blazing white around him. Afraid of being ambushed, Kaori Karasawa did a graceful somersault in midair, forcefully changing her direction, and drifting a dozen meters away. Just as her feet touched the ground, Lu Qing suddenly took a step forward and stomped down heavily. The mind's eye sensed something and Kaori Karasawa rolled sideways. Bam! Where she originally stood, the earth split apart, magma erupting. Scarlet red liquid shot out like a fountain, scattering in all directions. This was the combination of a physical invulnerability expert's ability to communicate with the heavens and earth, and have the advantage of home ground. Seeing that Kaori Karasawa hadn't gotten up from her roll, Lu Qing tensed his feet and extended his left leg again, communicating with the magma underground. Kaori Karasawa was at the end of her rope and couldn't dodge anymore. She thrust her tachi in front of her, and infused it with her own chi. Radiance flashed and the ground trembled for a while before calming down. There was no volcanic eruption. Shinjai sect, Xidigarba takedown. At this moment, Lu Qing was already in front of Kaori Karasawa. Light blue and gold coalesced around him. The 5 flames were ready. He clenched his fist and punched downwards. 5 balls of fire of different colors gathered in a spiral. Kaori Karasawa's pupils shrank. She didn't dare to take it head-on. She did a backflip and pulled out her katana, sending the chi ray towards Lu Qing from below. Lu Qing straightened his back and straightened his body. Using the explosion of the flame force in his body, he took 2 steps back and dodged the crescent-shaped blade accurately. The 5 flames that attempted to converge into one was just a feint. Scarlet, gold, and light blue flew out and blasted towards Kaori Karasawa, who was doing a backflip. Boom, boom, boom. Kaori Karasawa gave it her all and continuously cast Shrink, to barely avoid the continuous bombardment. However, her senses were affected by the smoke and her respiratory tract was burned by the high temperature. She almost coughed out loud. At this moment, she heard a dignified ancient Chinese voice. Formation. The air around her froze. Kaori Karasawa, who had dodged to the limit, was trapped in an invisible cage. She saw the blazing white and light purple balls flying towards her from behind and above Lu Qing. She clenched her teeth and tightened her grip on the handle of her katana. Snap. After a soft sound, a white glow broke through the cage and split the blazing white and light purple balls of fire into 2, causing them to fall to the sides. Rumble. The katana didn't hit Lu Qing, who had dodged in advance. It left a visible crack in the ground, followed by a sonic boom. Kaori Karasawa, who had escaped danger, immediately changed directions. However, just as the sonic boom and shockwave subsided, she realized that Lu Qing was following her like a shadow. She heard another mysterious ancient voice. Confrontation. With her fighting spirit gone, Kaori Karasawa felt as though she had returned to the Shinjai sect dojo. She felt as though she was arranging flowers and making tea. She felt as though she was looking at a Buddha statue and calming her heart. She stopped in her tracks and sheathed her katana, not wanting to draw it. However, such a state of mind was compatible with her usual training. Mind's eye was maximized and her enemy appeared clearly. This is an opportunity. Without killing intent, his premonition will be slower. Kaori Karasawa maintained her meditative state, slowly and discreetly compressing her chi, muscles, and tendons. She was going to use the flying dragon takedown on her ambushing opponent to determine victory. After the confrontation formula, Lu Qing's hand seals changed slightly. He changed the ancient word and shouted in a low voice, "Attainment." Following which, light blue flames spewed out from his back and feet. He appeared in front of Kaori Karasawa in a flash as though he was teleporting. He was so fast that it was jaw-dropping. Attainment formula plus jet counterattack. Bam! Lu Qing extended his right hand and grabbed the handle of Kaori Karasawa's katana, stopping her flying dragon takedown before it could be released. Bam! Under Kaori Karasawa's stunned gaze, Lu Qing threw a punch with his left hand, landing on the arm that his opponent had hurriedly let go of her katana and raised to block. After using flame force for so long, the cold tide, which was close to losing its balance, gushed out wildly and sealed Kaori Karasawa in ice within the transparent wall. Although it was quickly melted by the surrounding high temperature, it did slow Kaori Karasawa down for a moment. In a battle of physical invulnerability, victory was decided in a matter of moments. Lu Qing swung his left elbow and his fist bounced up, landing right in front of her forehead. Kaori Karasawa was momentarily stunned. She couldn't understand what was going on, but that name sounded familiar. Lu Qing wins. Chapter 694. Kaori Karasawa had plenty of experience in arena matches. Although she didn't understand the referee's words, she knew exactly how the situation played out. She loosened her muscles and tendons that hadn't had the time to unleash their full power, allowing her gathered chi to dissipate. She arched her back and bowed solemnly. "Thank you for your guidance, Lu." With that, she didn't care if he understood what she meant. She picked up the katana in her scabbard and headed for the Guanwei League changing room. Her mind was in a mess. To a samurai famed for her swordsmanship, it was humiliating to be interrupted and sheath her katana, especially when it happened between a samurai of the same level. If it had been a few decades or centuries ago, committing suicide by disembowelment would have been a logical choice. The Shinjai sect wouldn't pursue such extremes, but it wasn't uncommon for them to sit in front of Buddha and distance themselves from pleasure. They would train their body and mind in a masochistic manner in hopes of cleansing themselves. In the recent few decades, such spirits had long faded away, leaving only remnants of their influence. However, that wasn't an excuse to accept with a clear conscience. She had made two mistakes when Lu Qing held her katana hilt and prevented her from pulling it out. First of all, he had never used the attainment formula in combination with his self-created jet technique. No one would have thought that he could be so fast. It was a stark contrast to Meng Qi's flying dragon takedown, which he had deliberately slowed down in preparation for the flying dragon takedown in order to hide his killing intent and his premonition. However, this wasn't an absolute reason. Based on the fact that Meng Qi had mastered the attainment formula and created his own jet technique, it was reasonable to assume and take precautions in advance. Second, his confrontation formula had indeed allowed her to dissipate her fighting spirit and lose her impatience. It was as though she had returned to the Buddhist temple, where she cultivated her mind's eye and entered the Shinjai realm that only her master possessed. She had the ability to reduce the premonition of flying dragon takedown and surprise her opponent. However, thinking about it now, Lu Qing hadn't made a mistake that gave her an opportunity. He had predicted such a situation and did it on purpose. In other words, after she was influenced by her opponent, she thought she had found a loophole in her opponent's trap and found a way to counterattack. However, she had actually fallen into the second trap that he had carefully prepared. It was because of the feeling of imminent victory that she had forgotten to be wary of Lu Cheng's double-stacking speed. If that wasn't the case, even if she lost, she wouldn't have lost so quickly. Her fukunaru wouldn't have been pressed back into its scabbard. "I'm so stupid." Kaori Karasawa couldn't help but blame herself after she understood. Her heart was filled with an inexplicable grievance, but it was suppressed by her powerful spirit, so she didn't show it. She just pursed her lips tightly. "Wow, Kaori-chan's aggrieved look is super cute." In the major forums in Japan, many similar words appeared in an instant. "My heart hurts. I want to comfort her. It's a pity that Kaori-chan isn't like before. I remember when she was a teenager, if she lost, she would try to hold it in, but she wouldn't be able to hold back her tears. After all, he's already a divine ghost expert. I remember selling things like Tears of Hajime. Her opponent is really strong. He actually managed to push Kaori-chan's knife back. It gives people the feeling of attacking from above and below. I've already reminded you that Lu Jun's growth is beyond your imagination. Too abnormal, too terrifying. He's not the only freak and terrifying expert in China. We have fallen behind by a lot, but those conservative and stubborn old men can't see it. Heavenly punishment, you old bastard." On the Chinese internet, similar discussions were everywhere. However, the words used to express their love were more direct. Phrases like kiss, hug, raise up could be seen everywhere. In the changing room of Longhu Club, Empress Luo stood in front of the glass window. Hearing the exclamations and cheers of the live audience, she took a deep breath and said, "He's indeed good at fighting. It's only been 6 or 7 months since he made the great leap. At this juncture, I'm afraid only Warrior Sage has done better than him in the past 20 to 30 years. Even Dragon King is at most on par with him." Lu Yan's tone was calm, but his evaluation of Lu Jun was quite high. Ning Zitong slowly turned her head and laughed out loud. Luckily Dragon King is recuperating. If he had heard what you said just now, we wouldn't be able to see Lu Cheng getting beaten up every week. That day will come sooner or later. I'm wondering if he'll take the initiative to challenge me like Longjun. Lu Yan's lips twitched as he cracked a rare joke. Ning Zitong rubbed her temples and sighed. Why did we name it Longhu in the first place? Every time something like this happens, I'm reminded of the saying, 2 tigers can't live on one mountain. Beside her, Guojie stared outside with a complicated expression. There was a desire to chase after Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng winning against Kaori Karasawa was within expectations. However, no one expected him to win in such a manner. In the away team changing room, Zhu Xiaoyan, Li Pinggao, Zheng Shiduo, and the rest were silent. Only Lu Yongyuan's eyebrows twitched slightly. He stood up with the god-slaying saber that had turned the tables on the legendary twins. His expression was calm, and he seemed to be enjoying himself, just like when he saw the first spring rain last night. He didn't show any signs of worry, depression, or shock at Kaori Karasawa's defeat. Lu Yongyuan pushed open the door and walked out at a moderate pace. He saw the Japanese girl with a heavy expression and pursed lips. He smiled and nodded without a hint of blame. Then he walked past her and towards the center of fiery hell. Kaori Karasawa's gaze followed his figure in a daze. For a moment, she had the misconception that she was the victor. Senior Lu's state of mind has improved again. Lu Cheng stood where he was. The crimson lava beneath his feet flowed slowly in the crevices. Around him, flames spewed upwards. His eyes were locked on the leisurely Lu Yongyuan. Compared to last year's master battle, this god-slaying saber's aura was completely different. He no longer had the feeling of absorbing light from the heavens and earth, and bringing dusk forward. He also no longer had the hair-raising feeling of a divine weapon pressing against his forehead. He was like a woodcutter with a full load, or an elder deep in thought as he fished. He had an indescribable harmony with the heavens and earth, as though he was an integral part of the painting. The more restrained and natural he is, the more terrifying the sharpness of the saber when it is unsheathed. Lu Yongyuan has washed away his dust and found his true self. Thoughts flashed through Lu Cheng's mind. He knew that his opponent had gotten stronger. During the master battle, Lu Yongyuan walked his own path, and was in a state of impatience to test his saber. His sharpness was exposed and he was impetuous. But now he had completely calmed down and returned to his original state. Only such a god-slaying saber could reach the realm of refining the head. Lu Yongyuan stopped where Kaori Karasawa was initially standing. He looked at Lu Cheng. His chiseled features moved slightly, and he revealed a smile. This time it won't be just 9 sabers. P.S. The fight wasn't organized properly, so I had to stop here. Fewer words. Chapter 695. Upon hearing Lu Yongyuan's declaration, Lu Cheng was as calm as an ice lake. He replied politely, "Let's wait and see." As he spoke, he continued with his previous preparations. He restrained the ice soul and guided the flame force to form the last light blue fireball outside his body. It shone together with the blazing white, golden, crimson, and light purple colors that were circling around him. Against such a god-slaying saber, one couldn't be too cautious. Lu Yongyuan didn't care about Lu Cheng's reply. With his back facing the referee, he grabbed the hilt of his saber the moment his opponent raised his arm. Throughout the entire process, there was no change in his speed. It was the same from one second to the next. The spectators were shocked. When his slightly thick and slender fingers tightened and touched the surface of the hilt that was scorched by the high-temperature environment, his temperament suddenly changed. He was like a loaded gun, a missile that had a target, a divine weapon that had been erased of dust and removed of concealment. In the blink of an eye, the flames on the ground weakened and the lava flowed slowly. It was as though the heavens had been cut in half. Between the darkness, there was a bright and slender ray of light. Lu Cheng's hair stood on end. The referee's piercing voice rang in his ears. "Begin." Lu Yongyuan took a leisurely step forward. The god-slaying saber was silently unsheathed. With this slash, Lu Qing felt as though the two of them had been separated from the world, forming a new independent world. This world was so small that the distance between them was only a few meters. Lu Yongyuan took a casual step forward and entered the attack range. The black and heavy saber came crashing down. The formless airflow boiled and turned into shackles that pressed down on his opponent, interfering with the rotation of the faint purple, golden and other colors. 9 godly sabers, perimeter. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. Using the profundity of this move, Lu Yongyuan easily imitated Kaori Karasawa's shrinking ground. In fact, he even surpassed the speed of Kaori Karasawa's shrinking ground. He was on par with the speed of Lu Cheng's attainment formula's combined jet spray. Compared to the battle of grandmasters, his perimeter was obviously more sophisticated, more mysterious, and more advanced. Back then, Lu Cheng had used the complete fighting formula and the violence of his Dan Qi to forcefully break the rules, and barely block this move. This time, he made the same choice, but the power was even more terrifying because he was using 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descend of the sun. Whoosh, whoosh. The 5 flames glowed brightly, burning away the invisible bindings with a scorching heat. Then, as Lu Qing took a step forward, shook his arm, and swung his fist, they flew down and merged into one. Just as Lu Cheng's fist was about to land on the side of the god-slaying saber, the great sun condensed, and was about to illuminate the land. Suddenly, the black saber trembled and bounced up. Then it disappeared without a trace. 9 godly sabers, bladeless. This wasn't a move that was followed by another move. Instead, the changes of one move were followed by another move. What does it mean to do as one pleases and not overstep the bounds? This was it. Lu Qing narrowed his eyes, but it was too late to interrupt. The blazing light completely exploded. The audience either instinctively closed their eyes or temporarily lost their sight. All they could see was a vast expanse of whiteness, following which they felt the ground tremble. The bulletproof and heat-resistant glass shook, and they heard a deafening rumble. A deep crater appeared in front of Lu Qing. Under the pressure, the magma flowing underground turned into a fountain. Lu Yongyuan was nowhere to be seen. With the help of the smoke and violent winds, he managed to hide from the enemy heart-freezing move. Flames flickered in his eyes. Lu Qing suddenly had a strong premonition of danger. Without hesitation, he turned his body halfway and visualized. Taking advantage of the situation, he pulled back his arm and swung it behind him. A long saber covered in dazzling light cut through the void and descended. Then Lu Yongyuan's meticulous slick-back hair and slightly green eyes appeared. Wang. The god-slaying saber shook, and the light split into 8, slashing at various parts of Lu Cheng's body like a storm. The long saber, which had lost its dazzling light, was now dark. It maintained its previous trajectory and slashed downwards dangerously. 9 godly saber techniques, 9 Yin. At this moment, a layer of crystal appeared on the surface of Lu Cheng's body and rapidly spread outwards. Before the 8 saber rays could get close, they seemed to have fallen into a viscous liquid. Their radiance began to weaken and their speed gradually slowed. The closer they got to Lu Cheng, the thicker the viscous liquid. In the end, they even formed an ice wall. Kacha, kacha, kacha. Amidst the shattering sounds, Lu Cheng's fist struck the black long saber. Poof. A muffled sound rang out. The god-slaying saber was slightly askew and slashed at empty space. Beautiful, clear snowflakes of various shapes formed on the surface of the saber. 8 wounds that were neither deep nor shallow appeared on different parts of Lu Cheng's body. The 8th move of the ice sect, frozen heaven and earth, everlasting. This move was both defensive and offensive. It could affect the surroundings, rapidly lowering the temperature, freezing the airflow, and neutralizing the opponent's attack. Wherever the opponent's fist or leg came in contact with, a small area would be frozen. Because of the ice spirit force hidden within, it wouldn't melt in a short period of time, severely affecting the opponent's movement. If it weren't for the fiery hell, Lu Qing wouldn't even be injured. Of course, if he didn't have a premonition of danger and rich experience in life and death battles, he would either not be able to use it in time, or make the wrong decision to dodge. In that case, the 8 rays of light would have sealed off his path, and the god-slaying saber would have succeeded in one strike. The black saber landed on empty space, drawing a beautiful arc. Along with the ice and snow that hadn't melted, it retreated with greater force. Lu Cheng was about to counterattack when he sensed danger again. This time he suddenly pounced to the side. A bolt of lightning lit up. The airflow behind him formed a cone shape and expanded into clouds. Its speed was even faster than Kaori Karasawa's flying dragon takedown. 9 godly saber techniques, extreme electricity. Boom. Amidst the deafening explosion, Lu Cheng's ears went against common sense. He closed his eyes and blocked most of the sound waves. Using the strong wind and waves, he rolled like a donkey and flipped like a sparrow hawk. He stood up again and widened the distance between them. However, Lu Yongyuan didn't stop to introduce his moves like he did in the master battle. Retracting his extreme electricity, he took a step forward and struck again with his saber, not giving his opponent any time to catch his breath. This strike was square and circle again, shortening the distance between them once more. The shackles of the rules pressed down on Lu Cheng. Again. The thought flashed across Lu Cheng's mind. Taking a deep breath, he hugged his lower abdomen with his mental strength, forming a miniature universe of balance between darkness and stars. The stars moved and the fighting formula formed. With the eruption of Dan force, he swelled up to 2 meters tall. His clothes outlined his muscles, and his exposed skin was dark blue. The flowing lines of flame and the shape of ice crystals and snowflakes could be vaguely seen under his skin. He looked like a giant older than the gods. Bam, bam, bam. The shackles shattered inch by inch. Lu Cheng twisted his waist and back, and his right fist flew out like a rocket launcher. Boom. Flames erupted from the ground, and the tongues tore at Lu Yongyuan's legs. The god-slaying saber was also knocked back. After that punch, the flame force in Lu Cheng's body exploded, allowing him to exert strength for a second time. Charging forward, he closed in on his opponent in an instant. His left fist, covered in purple flames, swung diagonally upwards, aiming for his opponent's chin. Lu Yongyuan's expression was as calm as the water in a deep pool. Without any change, he lowered his shoulders and pulled the god-slaying saber again. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. He swung the 8 strokes continuously, blocking his opponent's attacks one after another. Bam bam bam. Lu Cheng swung his fists, smashing, hammering, and swinging. Every strike was heavy and hot as he pressed forward crazily. Lu Yongyuan's 8 strokes seemed to be endless. Lu Cheng's violent attacks were like the scorching sun in the sky. No matter how strong or terrifying they would eventually be swallowed by the darkness. 9 godly saber techniques, dusk. After a series of attacks, Lu Cheng, who had some poison in his body, had to take a breather. Lu Yongyuan, on the other hand, did the same sluggish action as if he was looking in a mirror. Not good. Sensing danger again, Lu Cheng shifted his center of gravity, swung his waist and pounced. Another bolt of lightning illuminated the earth fire, and a cone-shaped air mass was ejected out. At this moment, Lu Yongyuan's body sank, and his wrists became heavier. He forcefully interrupted the extreme electricity, stopping the god-slaying saber halfway. Boom. Amidst the sound of the explosion, the long saber bounced up and fell abruptly. It was like a real, bearing lightning bolt or a spear from the gods in the sky thrusting towards the ground. 9 godly saber techniques, heavenly spear. Another force change of moves. Bam. Before Lu Cheng could stabilize himself, he was enveloped by the saber. In a hurry, he could only respond with severe warning. His fists flew up, and his arms and body were covered in a layer of ice armor. To him, he could already execute simplified physical invulnerability moves quickly. Boom. The long saber paused, and Lu Cheng staggered. The ice armor shattered inch by inch. At this moment, Lu Yongyuan turned his arm and made a charging gesture. All of a sudden, darkness appeared and absorbed all the light in the surroundings. All Lu Cheng saw was darkness, all he heard was silence, and all he felt was emptiness. The last move of 9 godly saber techniques, eternal silence. Last time, Lu Cheng had to rely on the 9 words formula to break through his opponent's mental suppression and block the saber. He also relied on Lu Yongyuan's too slow. The long saber speed was too slow, and there was still room for recovery if he made a mistake in judgment. Now that the god-slaying saber had made a comeback, It had probably overcome its shortcomings and was hiding a change that targeted the 9 words formula. Facing this, Lu Qing didn't feel the slightest bit of fear. Instead, there was a hint of joy in his eyes. This was the moment he was waiting for. Waiting for Lu Yongyuan to execute eternal silence. Logically speaking, even if he hadn't fought Kaori Karasawa, he wouldn't have much of a chance of winning against Lu Yongyuan, who was close to the level of Dragon King or Warrior Sage. Through the combination of martial arts and cultivation, the Dan into equilibrium, and the cosmic universe style, Lu Qing had almost reached the level of a second pin when he had just mastered the unique skills of the Ice Sect and Fire Sect. When he mastered both, coupled with the experience of life and death battles in the war-torn zones, and his own insights, he wouldn't dare to say that he was a first pin, but he would have a 30% to 40% chance of defeating a mighty one of the same level. Unfortunately, Lu Yongyuan wasn't just a first pin. He was a mighty one with titles, the King of Sabers who had improved. Therefore, after the battle with Kaori Karasawa, he could only consider how much he could exhaust his opponent. However, if he only thought about exhausting his opponent, he would be restrained and unable to unleash his full potential. Therefore, Lu Qing set a grand goal to motivate himself to work hard. This goal was to defeat him. Defeat the god-slaying saber Lu Yongyuan. This wasn't completely hopeless. There was still a tiny possibility. It could be that what he had comprehended from the restriction sect, Clear Jade chapters, happened to counter Lu Yongyuan's self-created strongest move, eternal silence. In the silent darkness, Lu Qing lowered his center of gravity. His feet were in the air, and he lifted his right hand clumsily. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Chapter 696. Lu Qing raised his arm and clenched his fingers into a fist. The center of his palm was dim and dazzling. It was as though he was grabbing a part of the starry sky and the universe. It was deep, magnificent, vast, distant, and contained infinity. Bam! He pulled his shoulders and pressed his palms down. The darkness around him collapsed and shattered inch by inch. Brilliant light that reflected the light of the fire radiated from the cracks. The sky at night seemed to have countless holes that even Nuwa couldn't fix. The dark and heavy god-slaying saber was about to land on Lu Qing. It was at least twice as fast as the Grandmaster battle. However, it was attracted by the darkness in his palm. It moved upwards and collided with it. It was as though it had fallen into a whirlpool and approached a black hole. This was what Lu Qing had grown. By using his cosmic universe style as the soil, after comprehending the restriction sect. Clear Jade chapter. Self-created unique skill. Tilting northwest sky, sinking southeast earth. The outstanding combination of mental attack and physical strength contained the will of big destruction, which was a perfect counter to moves like heaven and earth in one's own, such as Lu Yongyuan's square and circle, or eternal silence, which was stronger than square and circle and required more mental strength. Boom! Lu Qing's palm landed heavily on the long saber. However, there was no sound of metal clashing. The air billowed and the noise was deafening. It completely destroyed the darkness. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The god-slaying saber bent softly at first. Then it suddenly straightened and vibrated at high speed. It was as though it was a wounded beast that let out cries of agony. Such a violent reaction affected his mental strength. Lu Yongyuan, who was feeling dizzy, almost lost his grip on the saber. He channeled dark sky force and exerted force with his 5 fingers to stabilize himself. However, the web between his thumb and index finger had already split open. Blood dyed the handle red. Furthermore, the bones, tendons, and muscles of his wrist, forearm, and arm were aching, temporarily affecting his movements. This was the first time he was injured since the start of the match. Of course, Lu Qing wouldn't let go of this opportunity that he had been waiting for. The follow-up combo that he had practiced countless times in his mind turned into instinct. His left leg strangely stepped forward and landed at the same level as the god-slaying saber. His muscles, tendons, and form gave off the feeling of being twisted to the extreme, like a wound spring. Bang! Lu Qing shook his left arm and raised his palm. Internally, he was receiving the burst of strength and the surge of spirit. Externally, he was receiving the blessings of heaven and earth as well as inertia. Rumble. His left palm fell from the sky, and the center of his palm was once again dotted with brilliant darkness. Tilting heaven northwest, sinking earth southeast. Double hit. Of course, in order to seize the fleeting opportunity, Lu Qing didn't fully visualize it like he did just now. Instead, he used his footwork and physical skills to exert force and make up for the power, which was a little less effective. This was something that couldn't be helped. When facing an expert at Lu Yongyuan's level, even a moment of delay could turn the situation around or get him out of danger. Therefore, as soon as there was a chance, one had to crazily chain attacks. If one couldn't continue to chain attacks and still hadn't won, and hadn't severely injured the opponent, then one who had fought a battle beforehand and whose strength was weaker could basically admit defeat. The light in front of Lu Yongyuan's eyes dimmed as the airflow exploded. Lu Yongyuan, who couldn't wield his blade with his right hand, saw the enemy's palm as though it was collapsing the heavens and the earth. Even with his state of mind and his willpower, he couldn't help but feel small and weak. Fortunately, he still had his left arm and his scabbard. Bam! Lu Yongyuan held the upper end of the scabbard and slashed out, hitting Lu Cheng's left palm accurately, using offense as defense. Boom! Tiny spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the dark green scabbard. Lu Yongyuan's muscles trembled as he pulled his arm back. His right leg tightened as he was about to pull forward, not passively defending. At this moment, Lu Qing lowered his center of gravity and channeled the rebounding force into his right leg, cracking the ground. Bam! Where Lu Yongyuan stood, a volcano erupted and flames spewed out crazily. If he hadn't sensed the commotion deep inside and forcefully changed his whip leg into a back kick, taking advantage of the momentum to leap away, he would have been engulfed by the flames and suffered serious injuries. Lu Cheng's third hit in the combo. Home field advantage. With this retreat, Lu Yongyuan immediately executed his dark sect footwork. It was as though he had transformed into a long blade, shaking out countless afterimages with many hidden changes. Sometimes left, sometimes right, sometimes front, sometimes back, sometimes jumping, and sometimes crouching on the ground to avoid the pursuit, trying to increase the distance between them. Of course, Lu Qing wouldn't allow him to regain his composure. His wind made use of the flames to sweep forward. Relying on the lock of enemy heart freezing move, he barely managed to keep up with Lu Yongyuan's turn. However, his movements weren't as smooth as Lu Yongyuan's. The distance between them slowly but surely widened. At this moment, his right palm grabbed a ball of faint purple and launched it towards Lu Yongyuan, who had predicted his next move. Lord Emperor's purple flame. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Qing attacked left and right. Sometimes he fired a cannon, sometimes he stuck close to the ground and burned. He wasn't afraid of making a mistake in his judgment, and was using quantity to make up for it. As for the fact that this would consume a lot of energy and couldn't be maintained for long in his current condition, he didn't care. If this combo couldn't finish Lu Yongyuan off, then it wouldn't matter how much fire force he had left. Of course, this was also in preparation for what would happen next. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Yongyuan was surrounded by smoke and flames. Even though he wasn't hit directly, his footwork was affected. The breath he had forcefully gathered was about to dissipate, and his footsteps started to slow down. A thought flashed across his mind. Lu Yongyuan took a deep breath and made a forced concentration. It was as though he was trying to relieve the soreness and pain he had felt earlier. Seeing him pause, Lu Qing didn't hold back. Faint blue flames gushed out from his back, and in an instant, he was right in front of his opponent. But at the same time, Lu Yongyuan's figure dimmed, as though he had turned into a shadow. He was blown away by the wind, as though he was weightless. Lu Cheng's sudden attack missed. He waved his arm anxiously and pulled out a ball of purple flames, which he threw at the shadow. Boom! A crater immediately appeared. Lu Yongyuan dodged with a strange posture, and his dimming figure quickly faded away. He finally stopped. He hurriedly gathered his qi, blood, force, mind, and other negative effects in his dantian, trying his best to recover the movement of his arms. Phew, I almost couldn't continue. Lu Qing thought for a moment. His qi and blood directly stimulated a certain part of his body, and he executed the simplified attainment formula. Bam! Faint blue flames gushed out from his back and feet again, propelling him across the distance between them. He blinked in front of Lu Yongyuan and threw a punch. Lu Yongyuan's eyes turned black as his danqi expanded his body. The god-slaying saber swung upwards at a mysterious and swift speed towards Lu Cheng's fist. The tip of the saber was dark and restrained, but it was even more terrifying. Lu Cheng's movements didn't slow down, and there was no hesitation in his eyes. His left fist, which wasn't covered by the purple flames, struck the saber. Splat! The sound of the blunt saber cutting into flesh rang out. The god-slaying saber cut through his skin, muscles and fascia, and into his white finger bones. But there was an obvious pause, as though it was stuck there. No, it wasn't stuck. It was because it had already cut through the solid ice wall. It was because the saber was covered in a thick layer of crystal. It was because the frost had spread and sealed Lu Yongyuan in ice. Self-created unique skill, lament of the Ice Queen. Lu Cheng had used so much fire force just now to create a temporary and extreme imbalance between ice and fire. He wanted to simulate a universe without stars and to simulate the terrifyingly low temperature. He didn't need to prepare anything else, nor did he need to surround himself with 5 flames. That was how he could use it. Using it cleverly depended on his heart. Crack. The ice coffin that sealed Lu Yongyuan didn't even last a second. Cracks appeared everywhere, as though it had been cut by countless saber glints. Lu Cheng, who didn't stop his combo, retracted his left fist covered in blood-colored frost. It was as though gunpowder had been ignited in his body. His right fist turned into a cannon and blasted towards his enemy. That wasn't all. He didn't care about the injuries on his left fist and arm. Using them as weapons, he followed up with a punch using his shoulder as a driving force. Bam! 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 Lu Cheng used the internal eruption of Emperor Yen force to increase the speed of his punches. He threw 8 punches in the gaps between the moves of the other physical invulnerability experts. He was so fast that the audience thought he had 4 arms. If only my Orochi could reach this level, thought Kaori Karasawa, who couldn't take her eyes off the fight. To be able to force Senior Lu to this extent, Lu Cheng has really left me in the dust. Bam! 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 The ice coffin shattered completely. Lu Yongyuan, who was still feeling cold, faced Lu Cheng's frenzied attacks. His god-slaying saber and scabbard moved horizontally and vertically, up and down. Even though he was slightly slower, he blocked the 8 consecutive punches purely with his saber techniques and judgment. Bam! Lu Cheng suddenly bent his knees, arched his back, and pounded his fists on the ground like a madman. Lu Yongyuan felt the pressure lessen. Just as he was about to take advantage of the situation and switch from defense to offense with Heavenly Spear, his expression changed as he sensed the madness underground. With this attack, Lu Cheng was going to detonate the fiery hell within a few dozen meters, draining most of his home field advantage. Left, right, forward, backward, I'll be hit by the lava. Even with Dark Sky's protection, I'll only be able to withstand it for a short while. It's inevitable that I'll be severely injured. Next up, I'll have to face Empress Luo. Thoughts flashed through Lu Yongyuan's mind. He jumped up high, his legs shrouded in darkness and hard to see. Boom. Other than where Lu Cheng was, the ground within a 30-meter radius caved in. Flames, lava, and dust spewed high into the air. The sky was first crimson red, then turned gray. The fountain surged for an unknown number of meters before finally running out of momentum. It spilled downwards, but it failed to engulf Lu Yongyuan. It merely tore at his ankles and below for 2 seconds. The darkness faded, and his shoes and socks turned to dust. Lu Yongyuan was about to unleash his blade aura towards the lava to cross the volcano when his surroundings suddenly turned dark. It was so dark that it felt like the depths of the universe. It was extremely cold. In the distance, stars moved one after another, maintaining balance. Lu Cheng's previous attack was both to detonate the accumulated energy underground and to prepare for his follow-up combo, Universe Phantom. He straightened his back, raised his hands, and stood up abruptly. Lu Yongyuan first turned into a bug in a transparent amber. Then he saw the stars coming at him one after another. I've won, right? Lu Cheng was exhausted from the combo. He looked up at the sky, waiting for the result. Boom, boom, boom. The ice coffin exploded, and more stars came at Lu Yongyuan like a net. Seeing that the intense explosions were about to happen, a ray of light slashed out, and darkness surged, enveloping the specks of light. There was no sound, no light. The ninth move of the dark sect, dark devouring sun, descent of eternal night. This was also the blueprint for the last move of Lu Yongyuan's 9 godly sabers, eternal silence. However, compared to eternal silence, which hadn't been perfected, this killer move of the dark sect was obviously more complete. Lu Qing gasped. He didn't expect Lu Yongyuan to use this move without any preparation. If he had done so earlier, wouldn't he have won long ago? Looks like he wouldn't use it so easily. He would have to pay a hefty price. In a breath, the darkness was torn apart like a curtain. Faint rays of light fell, and were swallowed by the lava. Lu Yongyuan's figure appeared. His hair was still neat, but his clothes were in tatters. The god-slaying saber was trembling nonstop. He seemed to have lost his strength temporarily and fell straight down. There was no ground below him, only the undulating and slowly flowing crimson lava. Lu Qing narrowed his eyes and raised his right hand with difficulty. At this moment, Lu Yongyuan recovered. His figure dimmed, and he turned into a shadow again. His fall slowed significantly. Following that, he was about to slash at Lu Qing's location and use the recoil to change direction. He seemed to still have a lot of strength left. However, a majestic purple color appeared in his eyes. He saw a heavy and terrifying fireball condensing in front of Lu Qing's right palm. If such an attack comes, I can only take it head-on since I can't change direction in time. The result of that is to lose the opportunity to slash at him, change direction, and cross the lake of lava. I will fall into it. Even if I can use dark sky to protect myself, under such circumstances, there is a 50% chance that I won't be able to survive. There is a 50% chance that I will be severely injured, and will barely be able to crawl to the ground on the side. Lu Yongyuan's eyes turned cold. He sheathed his saber and kicked off with the back of his foot. He slashed at the isolated island, where Lu Qing was. Using the recoil, he floated back and landed on the lake, 20 to 30 meters away like a kite. During this process, Lu Qing didn't use Lord Emperor's purple flames. He drained his Lord Emperor's purple flames because Lu Yongyuan's answer was to return the god-slaying saber to its scabbard. The referee didn't hesitate. He raised his right hand and shouted, "Second round, Lu Qing wins." Lu Qing heaved a sigh of relief. He felt that he was on his last legs. Without waiting for Lu Yongyuan to speak, he cupped his hands and smiled. "Thank you, senior." With that, he turned and left. He walked towards the Longhu Club changing room with light steps. Just like Lu Yongyuan, he floated away after 9 slashes. P.S. This chapter is close to 4,000 words, so it's late. Consider it as making up for yesterday's chapter with fewer words. Chapter 697. Did he win? In the Guanwai League changing room, Kaori Karasawa stood by the glass window. Her clear eyes were wide open. She felt that the referee's announcement of the match and Lu Cheng's departure formed a strange contrast. In her heart, Lu Yongyuan was the world's strongest master in the field of swordsmanship. He was one of the few who stood at the pinnacle. She would have to spend 10 or 20 years to reach his level, or even never reach it. Her thoughts did not only come from what she had heard, but also from her own experience. Ever since she joined the Guanwai League, the sparring sessions had proven this without a doubt. Even if there were times when Lu Yongyuan was not attentive enough, and did not have the energy to do so, the details that were presented were still breathtaking. But now, the god-slaying saber had lost. He had lost to Lu Qing, who had been weaker than her a few years ago. The strength of the god-slaying saber wasn't a lie. His recent improvement was obvious to all. So where did the problem lie? Lu Qing's improvement was too scary. It was so scary that it felt surreal. Kaori Karasawa wasn't the only one who felt this way. The internet was flooded with similar Weibo posts and posts. Even in unrelated places, there were many posts expressing strong emotions such as "What the F*** CK," and "Is it morning?" In the room of an unknown commentator, The bullet screen flashed one by one, almost covering the handsome face of the commentator. Damn, the god-slaying saber lost? I have something to say, but I don't know if I should. 666666. I want to shout out to everyone here, what is impossible? Even though he has the home field advantage, isn't this a little too exaggerated? Lu Qing just fought with Kaori Karasawa. Honey, come out and see God. Does anyone want to place a bet with me? Bet that Lu Qing will get a title within 3 years. I have a bold idea. I'm not listening. Scram. Looking at the comments, the unknown commentator, Kai Zongming, laughed secretly. He cleared his throat, intending to speak up for a certain guy. Have you all forgotten? The god-slaying saber's special skill is unexpected failure. No matter which physical invulnerability expert he loses to, or wins against, don't be surprised. As soon as he finished speaking, an eye-catching green message flashed across the screen. Friendly support. Yan Shaoling has something to say. I feel that the god-slaying saber was very serious today. Yes, that's it. Damn, you can even see that? Kai Zongming was rendered speechless. But come to think of it, even a pig, after watching so many martial arts competitions for so many years, would be able to tell 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Although Yan Shaoling often made stupid mistakes, such as going to get the express delivery and returning to the dormitory with a bag of snacks, it wasn't to that extent. As this thought flashed through his mind, Kai Zongming immediately gritted his teeth. He had clearly asked this girl to organize some people to support and increase his popularity, but she actually ruined his plan? Thinking quickly, student Xiaoming was quick-witted. He organized his thoughts and said, carelessness and underestimation don't only refer to the competition, but also the preparation before. The god-slaying saber was indeed fully focused and used all he had learned, but he obviously wasn't on guard against Lu Cheng's sudden killer move. Isn't this a sign of not paying enough attention and not understanding more? It's just like when we were studying. Other than a few who have already become immortals and don't care about grades, most people are still very focused and serious during exams. Whether it's doing the homework by themselves, passing notes, asking questions in the competition, or asking for help outside the competition, they've done their best. But what about before the exam? How many of the students actually did their revision in earnest? How many students didn't get distracted in class, didn't whisper to each other, and listened attentively to the end, understanding everything completely? Speaking of which, I remember a student who was very serious during exams. But on the day of the exam, he didn't even know what he was going to be tested on. He even missed the time. The god-slaying saber situation is similar to this. After Kai Zongming finished speaking, seeing that no one refuted and that most agreed with him, he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. He was deeply impressed by his improvisation. TSK, no one noticed the loophole in my logic. They were all reminded of their beautiful memories or their youthful lives. Lu Yongyuan wasn't on guard against the killer move because he didn't pay enough attention and didn't understand his opponent well enough. It's more likely that he didn't know. Based on my understanding of Chung, this is his latest invention and he hasn't used it before. When my eloquence is strong, even I find it terrifying. At this moment, another audience member asked, didn't the god-slaying saber admit defeat too easily? In that situation, he still had the strength to fight back. This is a difficult question, but it's not a problem for me. Kai Zongming chuckled and quickly switched to another interface. He skimmed through the relevant answers of the professional commentators to verify his own opinion. This was what he had been doing before, so he didn't delay for more than a few seconds before explaining. The situation just now was a game, a variant of the prisoner's dilemma. Some students said that it wasn't at all, but in my opinion, it's all the same. Don't worry about these details. The situation back then was that if Lu Yongyuan used his saber aura first and used the recoil to escape from the magma, Lu Cheng could take advantage of the time when he had used up all his energy and hadn't regenerated enough to shoot him down with Lord Emperor's purple flame, not giving him a chance to use his saber aura and recoil. However, if Lu Yongyuan wanted to wait for Lu Cheng to make the first move and use his saber aura to split the purple flame and block in recoil, He would have to wait patiently for his opponent to make the first move. Lu Qing could wait, but Lu Yongyuan couldn't. If he waited any longer, he would fall into the magma. The only way to escape was to have the ability to change direction a few times in midair. Lu Yongyuan did it twice before, but after using Dark Devouring Virokana, Descent of Eternal Night, it seemed like he couldn't use it for a while. After such a game, it was natural for him to admit defeat. Wow, the host is so professional. Good analysis. He's my idol. He's so handsome. He's so funny. As the bullet screen slid past, Kai Zoming couldn't help but cover his face. Yan Xiaoling, what kind of people did you find? Isn't this a little too exaggerated? I was wrong. I actually believed that you could do it well. At this moment, the poison milk hierarch, He Xiaowei, who had been in a daze since the end of the competition, finally came to his senses. He realized that the cup of water he was drinking wasn't aimed properly, and had wet his chin and clothes. I was wondering why it was so cold. He Xiaowei put down the cup and took a few pieces of tissue paper to wipe it clean. After he was done, his eyes flashed with residual shock and gradually increasing excitement. He began to consider the content of his Weibo post. When the legendary twins stepped onto the stage of physical invulnerability, I was still a child. Yes, a child of 18 or 19 years old. I didn't have enough clarity and maturity. But now, am I witnessing the dawn of a new era? The Wisdom King, who had already won 2 titles, Lu Cheng, who was improving at a terrifying speed, Peng Liyun and Ren Li, who were desperately trying to catch up, King of Swords, and the others who were gradually fading out of the professional scene, Dong Baxian and Lu Yongyuan, who were still in their prime, Dragon King and Warrior Sage, who had been on the verge of a breakthrough for a few years. After a moment of silence, He Xiaowei typed a few words in the box. We can look forward to Lu Qing getting a title in the next year or 2. I'm witnessing the dawn of a new era. Standing at the edge of the lava lake, Lu Yongyuan watched Lu Cheng's back as he left. He narrowed his eyes slightly and hid all his emotions. He must have used what he learned from the restriction sect, Clear Jade chapters. If I had seriously asked my friends in the military, even if I couldn't figure out what he learned, I would have known that he was qualified to learn the restriction sect, Clear Jade chapters. I would have been on my guard. But no matter what, he's already an opponent I have to take seriously. After a while, Lu Yongyuan, with his meticulous hairstyle, turned and walked towards the away team's changing room. Under the illumination of the flames, his back seemed bleak. The closer Lu Qing got to the Longhu changing room, the weaker he felt. If he hadn't defeated Kaori Karasawa so quickly, he would have lost. Amidst the cheers, he saw the martial arts fanatic, Guojia, walking out quickly with a disappointed expression. In the changing room, Empress Luo shook her head helplessly. She said to Coach Lu Yan, "Your plan is ruined." What? Lu Yan didn't react immediately. Ning Zitong's lips twitched. You said that you wanted her to go on stage under pressure to train. Well, there's no pressure now. Guojia and Zhu Xiaoyan were both second pin. Even if they were slightly weaker and lost the match, there were still big shots behind them. Lu Yan fell silent. After a long while, he muttered to himself, "How would I know this would happen?" Chapter 698. After exchanging a nod with Lu Cheng, Guojia walked towards the edge of the magma lake, under the protection of the underground fire. The nervousness in her heart was long gone. It was even worse than when she participated in the title match. It was closer to being arranged to fight in an unimportant match. However, this didn't affect her yearning for matches. Challenging different opponents, witnessing different secret arts, and experiencing different styles had always been one of her hobbies. The nickname martial arts fanatic wasn't made up by others. How could there be no wind without a cause? In the changing room of the Guanwei League, Zhu Xiaoyan, who had a healthy weak complexion and a slender figure of average height, sighed and stood up slowly. Sister Xiaoyan, don't feel pressured, consoled Zheng Shiduo, who was about 2 meters tall. It wasn't the first time Boss Lu had unexpectedly lost a match. We didn't expect you to win 1 versus 2, especially with Empress Luo, who was famous for her movement techniques. Zhu Xiaoyan put her finger to her lips and made a smile. I'm not feeling pressured. I'm just lamenting that the martial arts fanatic is indeed a martial arts fanatic. Other than practicing martial arts, competing, eating, and sleeping, it's all about practicing martial arts, competing, eating, and sleeping. I can't believe I didn't manage to collect any dark history of hers. It's going to be tough later. She collected dark histories of others for 2 reasons. Firstly, it was to satisfy her hobby of gossip. Secondly, it was to use it as material for her illusionary secret arts. Through targeted arrangements, she could improve the effect and pass off the truth as the truth. However, Guojie was so boring that she felt helpless. Without waiting for Zheng Shiduo to say anything else, Zhu Xiaoyan cracked her neck and walked towards the changing room door. As she held the door handle, she turned around and looked at Li Pingao, whose eyelids shone with a metallic luster. She didn't know what he was thinking with his head lowered. I'm going to battle. You have to come out as soon as possible. You're the most promising one among us to become a first pin and enter the title match. When Guojie and Zhu Xiaoyan approached the magma lake, Lu Qing took the phone and specially made nutrient solution from Amen, who came from the glass room next door. As he gulped down the liquid, he pushed the door open and entered. Ning Zitong lowered her hands and stood beside the window. Glancing at him, she said in exasperation, "You want us to change our home ground this year? The Dragon King is like that, and so are you. You don't learn from the good and learn from the bad." Lu Qing turned back to look at the magma lake, that was dozens of meters in radius. He laughed dryly and said, too forgetful. Otherwise he would not have been able to defeat the god-slaying saber. Of course, Sister Ning was not wrong. If similar explosions were to happen a few more times, this place would become a real magma lake decorated with stone pillars. At that time, it would be more beneficial for the warriors with outstanding body movements or the warriors who could travel in thin air, instead of the masters of the fire sect. Moreover, the danger level would increase exponentially. At this point, they had to find another main battlefield. There weren't many similar natural environments around Flower City. Well, 5 years ago, the previous home ground was ruined by the Dragon King. After hearing his reply, Ning Zitong spat. Both of you are so good at tearing down houses. If you get the title of king in the future, I suggest you call yourself Demolition King. Lu Qing was experienced and did not attempt to reason with Empress Luo or argue about his nickname. He only laughed and retreated back to his seat. He put the empty bottle of nutrient solution aside, turned on his phone, and looked at the compliments sent by his little fairy. He smiled happily and complacently as he said, covering his face and sighing expression, I was criticized by Empress Luo as soon as I returned to the changing room. She said I'm an expert at tearing down houses. Because his left fist was severely injured, he put his phone on his lap and typed with one hand. Yenjika was still immersed in the excitement of her husband defeating the god-slaying saber at his peak. When she saw this, she was clearly stunned. Then she pursed her lips, her dimples showing. Laughing out loud emoji, she replied, no problem. This joke is so funny. Lu Qing was slightly puzzled, but he quickly threw the thought to the back of his mind. He began to talk about the battle with Cuckoo. During the time, he controlled the details, healed his wounds and bandaged them. At this moment, Guojie and Zhu Xiaoyan were standing at the edge of the magma lake. However, they did not look at each other through the water. The referee did not allow the staff to clean up the battlefield, and there was no way to do so. Without further ado, he raised his right hand and said, begin. Guojie was about to pounce forward and launch a ferocious attack. She practiced the fire sect, not the dark sect that Empress Luo was good at, when her vision blurred. To her surprise, she saw the graceful figure of the woman opposite her. Her footwork was ethereal and mysterious. Master? The thought flashed through her mind, and she was slightly stunned. This was her master, Empress Luo Ning Zitong. After a moment of shock, Guojie, who had never fought with Zhu Xiaoyan before, quickly understood that this was an illusion created by her opponent. She was pretending to be her master to affect her performance. As her thoughts settled, the earth fire around Guojie suddenly surged. A strong wind blew, helping her to move faster and faster. A fist covered in flames punched out, hitting the claw of Ning Zitong that Zhu Xiaoyan had transformed into. Bam! The air current exploded. The figure rippled and soon shattered, like the bright moon in the middle of a lake that was thrown into a boulder. Fake. It's fake. A double trap. Guojie felt a chill from the side. She quickly bent her elbow and collided with a wheat-colored fist that came silently. Physical invulnerability level absolute reaction. For the rest of the match, Guojie had a feeling that her eyes, ears, mouth, nose, and mind were all deceiving her. However, she remained steadfast. Focusing on defense and mixing an area of effect attacks, she managed to hold on for more than 10 minutes. She even put Zhu Xiaoyan in a difficult position a few times. Unfortunately, Zhu Xiaoyan was indeed a genius in illusion techniques. After a long battle, she seized an opportunity to use truth as illusion to deceive her opponent's senses. When it came to close-range attacks, Guojie finally reacted, but she couldn't keep up with her movements. Regretfully, she lost. In the changing room, Ning Zitong heaved a sigh and mumbled, "I really don't like competing with her. It always reminds me of my helplessness, awkwardness, and unwillingness to recall." If it were in ancient times, her style of exposing others' scars would have been ganged up on and beaten to death. Lu Yan's face darkened as he added, "Her only strength is that only she knows." So what dark history do you have, Sister Ning?" Lu Qing was curious, but he didn't dare to ask. He watched as Empress Luo sashayed out the door. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. He tilted his head and asked with interest, "Coach, did you let Guojie fight because you didn't want to face Zhu Xiaoyan? What dark history does she know about you?" Lu Yan's expression froze. He replied in a deep voice, "Why would I be afraid of her?" After that, he stood up, walked to the window, and looked at the arena. "I'm not afraid of her, but I'm afraid of myself." Lu Qing laughed to himself. Looking at the big screen, he diverted some of his attention to heal his internal injuries. The last match was a foregone conclusion. Zhu Xiaoyan, who had expended a lot of energy, didn't last long before she was taken down by Empress Luo. The Longhu Club welcomed a new season of top-class professional matches. Of course, when Ning Zitong returned to the changing room, her face was a little sour. After a night of rest, Lu Qing, who was in a good mood, returned to the club early in the morning, ignoring his injuries. He started his recovery training. At around 8 a.m., he entered the physical invulnerability cafeteria. While going from frugal to extravagant, he instructed Amen to get breakfast. At the same time, he browsed the web portal in Weibo to read the media reports and comments. As he scanned, he saw the headlines of the day. The new generation surpasses the old. The new Longhu Club King is confirmed. The student surpasses the master. The leader of the Longhu Club for the next 10 years has appeared. The new generation surpasses the old. The leader of the next 10 years. The corner of Lu Cheng's mouth twitched as thoughts flashed through his mind. These guys are up to no good. It's as though I'm trying to usurp the throne. Why the F***ck did I think of this sentence? Are you getting carried away? Or am I, the Dragon King, too weak to lift my blade? He subconsciously looked around and suddenly rejoiced. Luckily, the Dragon King is still recuperating in the hospital. In the Longhu-affiliated hospital, the Dragon King, Chen Qitao, was slowly practicing martial arts on the balcony in his hospital gown. In the room with a floor-to-ceiling window, his phone, newspaper, and other items were placed on the table. They were either showing or flipping to the news of the match between the Longhu Club and the Guanwai League. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.